3 bullets remained in the Colt revolver. Caleb Holloway counted them by instinct, the way he had counted ammunition since
Careful
turning
now.
16
I can manage.
and first learning to hunt
we
men
go.
for bounty money. At 28 years old, counting bullets had become as natural and unconscious as breathing itself. Marcus Blackwood and his gang had the Holloway twins pinned down in a narrow canyon, towering rock walls rising on 3 sides, offering no avenue of escape. 10 armed men against 2. The mathematics of violence suggested this would not end well. Even for brothers who had survived every impossible situation the frontier could devise. The voice of Marcus Blackwood echoed off the canyon walls, distorted by distance and stone, mocking in its confidence. "Give it up, Holloway. You are outnumbered 10-2. There is no escape. Surrender now and die quick, or make us work for it and die slow." Caleb looked across the gap between boulders at his twin brother Cole. Blood streamed from a deep gash in Cole's temple where a bullet had grazed him moments earlier. Those pale green eyes, identical to Caleb's own mirrors from the same womb on the same day, held the unspoken question both brothers had been asking since this hunt began. Is this the canyon where our story ends? Cole pressed his hand against the bleeding wound, his voice strained but steady. "Caleb, listen. If we do not make it back to Copper Springs, if this is where we fall, Ayanna needs to know something. She needs to understand that we tried, that we wanted to come home to her and the baby." Caleb's response came firm and certain. "We will make it back. We are not dying here. We made promises, and Holloway brothers keep their word." But before Cole could respond, a sound cut through the chaos of gunfire and shouting men. A sharp whistle, distinctive in its pattern, rising and falling, in a rhythm that spoke of ancient traditions and warrior signals passed down through generations. An Apache were signal. The sound stopped Caleb's heart for one impossible moment. He recognized that whistle, that specific pattern of notes. Ayanna had taught it to him months ago during those quiet nights in Copper Springs, lying together in the darkness of their shared bed, her demonstrating how her grandmother and the warriors of her tribe had communicated across vast distances during raids and hunts. She had placed her fingers to her lips and created that exact sound, then laughed when Caleb tried and failed to reproduce it properly. But why would Ayanna be here? 3 full days of hard riding from Copper Springs, high in these New Mexico mountains, where winter still gripped the passes. 7 months pregnant and supposedly safe at home, protected by Sheriff Thompson and the entire town that had finally accepted their unconventional family. The whistle came again, closer this time, more urgent. Caleb's eyes tracked toward the ridge above Blackwood's position. There, silhouetted against the gray winter sky, stood a figure that made his blood run cold with equal parts terror and fierce pride. Ayanna. Her dark hair whipped in the mountain wind, unbound and wild. She held a Winchester rifle with the easy confidence of someone who had learned to shoot from men who made their living with weapons. And in her eyes, even at this distance, Caleb could see the fury. Not wild rage, but something colder, more purposeful. The righteous anger of a woman whose family had been massacred, whose child had been threatened, whose husbands had been hunted. She put 2 fingers to her mouth and gave the Apache attack signal. Blackwood's men spun in confusion, searching for the source of the sound, their attention divided between the Holloway brothers pinned in the canyon and this new threat from above. In that crucial moment of distraction, Caleb and Cole opened fire simultaneously. The canyon transformed into chaos. Gunsmoke filled the air thick enough to taste. Men screamed and fell and returned fire blindly. The sound of Winchester rifles and Colt revolvers created a deafening symphony of violence that echoed off the stone walls until it became impossible to tell where shots originated. But through it all, one thought burned in Caleb's mind with crystal clarity. How did we arrive at this moment? How did a retired bounty hunter end up in a canyon shootout while his 7 months pregnant wife fired from a ridge, risking both her life and the life of their unborn child? To understand that the story must return to its beginning. Return to winter and to Copper Springs. Return to the first moment Caleb Holloway saw the woman who would change everything about the life he thought he would lead 6 months earlier. Winter descended on Copper Springs, Arizona territory with unexpected ferocity, transforming the dusty frontier town into a landscape of white silence and bitter cold. Snow piled against building walls in drifts that reached window height. Ice formed intricate crystalline patterns on glass panes. The kind of winter that killed the unprepared and tested even those who thought they knew how to survive. Caleb and Cole Holloway rode into town on a Tuesday afternoon in late November, their horses exhausted from 3 months of hard pursuit across the New Mexico border. They looked like men who had spent those months sleeping on frozen ground with weapons close at hand. Dust and trail grime caked every crease of their clothing. Their beards had grown scraggly and unkempt. The kind of bone-deep weariness showed in every movement, the exhaustion that came not just from physical exertion, but from the constant vigilance required when hunting dangerous men. They had just completed their final bounty hunt. 5 Comanche raiders who had been terrorizing settlements along the border, burning homesteads, and taking scalps. The territorial marshal had paid $5,000 for their capture. Cole carried half that amount in his saddlebag. Caleb carried the other half, more money than most men earned in 5 years of honest labor. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like an ending. Cole spoke first as they approached the outskirts of town, his voice rough from days of limited conversation. First stop is whiskey. Good whiskey, not the rot gut they serve in most frontier saloons. Second stop is a proper bath, hot water, and real soap. Third stop is more whiskey and possibly a bed that does not involve sleeping with a rock digging into my spine. Caleb could not argue with that plan. The men dismounted on Main Street in front of an establishment that called itself Whitmore's Trading Post. The sign above the door had been hand-painted but showed professional skill. The windows, despite the winter grime, appeared cleaner than typical saloon glass. Something about the place suggested care and attention unusual for a frontier business. They tied their horses to the hitching post and pushed through the swinging doors into warmth and lamplight. The interior surprised Caleb immediately. Most saloons in towns like Copper Springs consisted of rough-hewn pine boards, sticky floors, and the accumulated filth of men who spent more time drinking than cleaning. This establishment gleamed. The bar itself had been constructed from polished oak, the kind of wood that spoke of expense and quality. Shelves behind the bar held bottles arranged by type and quality rather than randomly stocked. The floor showed recent sweeping broom marks still visible in the thin layer of dust. And behind that bar stood a woman who made Caleb forget the carefully rehearsed greeting he had prepared. She was Apache. The high cheekbones and bronze skin tone declared heritage, even before noting the dark eyes that assessed the new arrivals with calm intelligence. Perhaps 24 or 25 years old, though, frontier life made such estimates difficult. She wore a simple dress, nothing elaborate, but it fit her form in ways that made looking away require conscious effort. Her hands remained below the bar line, hidden from view. But Caleb recognized the stance, the subtle tension in her shoulders. She held a weapon, probably the shotgun he could just glimpse on a shelf beneath the counter. A woman alone in a frontier saloon learned quickly that sometimes the threat of violence prevented actual violence. Caleb found his voice, though it emerged rougher than intended. Whiskey, 2 glasses, whatever you consider your best. She poured without glancing at the bottle, a small detail that revealed years of experience. The liquid caught lamplight as it filled 2 glass tumblers, amber and gold. She slid the glasses across the polished oak surface with economical precision. Her voice when she spoke held cultured tones that seemed incongruous with the setting. $1 per glass, payment in advance if you please. Cole deduced 2 silver dollars from his vest pocket and placed them on the bar. The coins rang against the wood with that distinctive sound that separated real money from the brass tokens some establishments tried to pass as currency. The woman's hand emerged from below the bar to collect the payment. No weapon visible now, though Caleb suspected it remained within easy reach. Cole attempted conversation, his natural charm emerging despite the exhaustion. I have traveled extensively through Arizona territory and can honestly say I have never before encountered a woman operating a trading post. This represents a pleasant novelty. The woman's expression did not change, but something cold entered her voice. Then you have now experienced that novelty. I trust this does not present a problem requiring resolution. Caleb spoke quickly, attempting to smooth over any offense. No problem whatsoever, ma'am. My brother merely meant to express pleasant surprise, not skepticism about your capabilities. We intended no disrespect. Silence settled between them, brief but weighted. The woman studied both brothers with eyes that seemed to catalog every detail. The matched Winchester rifles slung across their backs. The twin Colt revolvers holstered at their hips. The way both men stood at identical heights with identical builds and moved with unconscious synchronization that only twins achieved. She saw all of it and made her assessment. When she spoke again, it came as statement rather than question. Bounty hunters, Cole offered a slight smile. Retired bounty hunters as of approximately 3 hours ago, when we collected our final payment from the territorial marshal. Our days of pursuing dangerous men across inhospitable terrain have concluded. One elegant eyebrow rose in skeptical inquiry. Retired, forgive my observation, but you appear insufficiently aged for retirement from any profession. Caleb felt something like a smile tugging at his mouth, the first genuine amusement he had experienced in months. We find ourselves adequately aged to have grown weary of being shot at by people who object to their capture. That weariness has motivated our decision to seek alternative employment. The almost smile that touched the woman's lips transformed her entire face for one fleeting moment. Then it vanished professional distance, reasserting itself. She returned to polishing glasses, a clear signal that the conversation had reached its natural conclusion. But Caleb discovered he did not wish to leave. Not yet. Perhaps not for a considerable while. What is your name, if I may ask, without causing further offense? She considered the question for a moment before answering. Ayana, my Apache name is Naalnish, which translates as she works hard. But my father, John Whitmore, called me Ayana. It seemed to fit better in this world. I am Caleb Holloway. This is my brother Cole. We are twins, as you have astutely observed. Born on the same day from the same mother, we have remained together through every venture and misadventure since. Ayana nodded acknowledgement, but volunteered nothing further. Caleb and Cole drank their whiskey in silence, savoring the quality that justified the dollar per glass cost. The liquor burned smooth, going down no rot-gut aftertaste or chemical harshness. Good whiskey. Honest whiskey. Yet Caleb found his attention repeatedly drawn away from the glass and toward the woman behind the bar. Questions formed in his mind. Curiosity about how an Apache woman came to operate a trading post in a frontier town where prejudice ran as deep as the winter cold. But asking those questions too quickly seemed presumptuous, an invasion of privacy she had not invited. So he simply sat and drank and watched, learning what he could from observation. Over the following 3 weeks, Caleb and Cole Holloway became regular patrons of Whitmore's trading post. They told themselves various justifications. The whiskey maintained consistent quality. The establishment occupied a central location convenient to the boarding house where they had taken rooms. The atmosphere proved more congenial than typical frontier saloons, lacking the aggressive drunkenness and casual violence common to such places. But both brothers understood the actual reason for their frequent visits. Ayana. Caleb learned her history gradually in fragments, in pieces she revealed during late evening conversations after the other customers had departed, and she cleaned glasses in preparation for closing. Each revelation added depth to his understanding, transformed her from attractive stranger to complex person with a story marked by tragedy and resilience. Her parents had been killed during the Fort Apache massacre of 1867. Ayana had been 6 years old, small enough to hide beneath blankets, while soldiers burned her village and slaughtered everyone she loved. She remembered the sounds more than the sights, screaming and gunfire, and the roar of flames consuming everything familiar. John Whitmore, a trader who happened upon the aftermath, found her hours later, still hiding, still silent with shock and terror. He could have left her for the authorities to deal with, could have delivered her to the reservation where Apache survivors were being consolidated. Instead, he took her home. Whitmore raised Ayana as his own daughter. He taught her to read and write in English, taught her arithmetic and bookkeeping, gave her education in white civilization while encouraging her to maintain connection with Apache heritage. When he died of a heart attack 3 years prior, his will left the trading post to her, with clear instructions that she should run it or sell it as she saw fit, but that the choice remained hers alone. She chose to run it, despite the gossip, despite the men who assumed Apache woman meant easy availability, despite the women in town who crossed the street to await her, unwilling to acknowledge someone who defied every category they understood. People talk, Ayana said one night while polishing the oak bar to gleaming perfection. They say an Apache squaw has no business running a white man's establishment. They say I should sell, move it to the reservation, be with my own kind, as they phrase it. Caleb set down his glass and met her eyes directly. What do you say to that when I say this business belonged to my father? He left it to me. It represents my home and my livelihood. Anyone who objects to that arrangement has the freedom to drink elsewhere. Copper Springs contains several alternative establishments. Caleb raised his glass in salute. I will drink to that sentiment with genuine enthusiasm. Something very close to a genuine smile touched Ayana's lips. Not quite there, but approaching. As weeks passed, Caleb found himself inventing reasons to visit the trading post. He fixed things around the establishment without being asked. The front door that stuck during wet weather, the window frame that had warped and no longer closed properly, loose boards on the front porch that creaked ominously under weight. Ayana protested initially. You need not perform these repairs without compensation. I can hire someone for such work. Caleb continued working, fitting a new hinge to the stubborn door. I know I need not, but I want to. Consider it payment for the excellent whiskey and better company. He brought her game from hunting trips, venison and rabbit and wild turkey. Good meat remained valuable on the frontier, and he knew the trading post's finances did not always permit purchasing quality provisions. She accepted the offerings with visible gratitude, though her pride clearly struggled with accepting what might be construed as charity. You will spoil me with such gifts, she observed, examining a haunch of venison he had brought. That represents my precise intention, Caleb replied with complete honesty. They talked during those visits, really talked about subjects beyond weather and business. Caleb had learned to read as a child from a Kansas school teacher who took pity on two orphaned boys. He loved books and ideas, loved discussing history and philosophy and the nature of justice. Ayana proved equally well-read, could argue points from multiple perspectives, challenged his assumptions, and made him reconsider positions he had held as certainties. You possess wasted talents operating a frontier trading post, Caleb told her during one particularly engaging conversation about the ethics of territorial expansion. Ayana's expression hardened slightly. Wasted because I am a woman or because I am Apache? Neither. Wasted because your intellect and education could accomplish significant things beyond serving whiskey to cowboys and drifters. You could teach or write or participate in territorial governance. Perhaps, but this establishment represents what I have. This business belonged to my father and now belongs to me. I excel at operating it. That excellence counts for something in this world, even if it fails to impress those who believe women belong solely in domestic spheres. Caleb recognized the truth in her words and did not press further. But he continued to think about all the potential he saw in her, all the possibilities beyond this single trading post in this single town. While Caleb pursued his methodical courtship, Cole Holloway employed his own approach. Where Caleb operated with serious intent and careful planning, Cole brought spontaneity and charm. He appeared at the trading post with wildflowers he had gathered during morning rides. He played guitar in the corner while Ayana worked, filling the space with music that transformed the atmosphere from mere commercial establishment to something approaching home. Cole told stories about their years hunting bounties, carefully edited versions that emphasized adventure while minimizing the violence and moral complexity. He made Ayana laugh, a sound that Caleb quickly became addicted to hearing, wanted to provoke as often as possible. One evening in early January, after Cole had finished a particularly entertaining story about tracking a horse thief through a blizzard, Ayana made an observation that struck both brothers silent. You two are remarkably different for twins. Caleb represents steadiness and reliability. One can depend upon him absolutely, but Cole brings joy and lightness. He makes existence feel less like constant struggle. Together you create something complete. Separated, each lacks what the other provides. The observation proved more perceptive than she likely realized. It articulated something the brothers themselves had never quite put into words. Later that night, lying in their shared room at the boarding house, Cole broke the silence that had lasted since leaving the trading post. You are in love with her. Not a question, a statement of observed fact. Caleb did not attempt denial. Yes, I am. Cole's response came quiet but firm. So am I. Caleb's hands stilled on the rifle he had been cleaning, a nightly ritual performed since adolescence. He looked at his brother, his mirror image, the person who knew him more completely than any other living soul. How long have you known about yourself, and about me, about my own feelings since the second week of our acquaintance with Ayana? about your feelings since that very first day when you could not stop staring at her while pretending to examine the quality of the whiskey. They sat in silence, both understanding they had arrived at unprecedented territory. Throughout their lives, they had shared virtually everything: food and clothing and horses, and even beds when they were young and money scarce. But they had maintained an unspoken rule regarding women. If one brother expressed interest, the other respectfully withdrew. No competition, no conflict. Brotherhood remained paramount. But Ayana represented something beyond their established patterns. She was not simply an attractive woman. She embodied possibility, represented hope for a future beyond violence and killing, showed them a version of themselves that might exist apart from bounty hunting and bloodshed. What should we do? Cole asked the question without expectation that Caleb possessed answers. I genuinely do not know. More silence heavy with implications neither fully understood yet. Finally, Cole spoke again, proposing something that seemed simultaneously logical and insane. What if we both court her? Allow her to observe both of us pursuing her interest and affection. Then she makes her own choice between us. If she selects you, do you accept that decision and step aside with good grace? If she chooses me, you do likewise. Either outcome, we remain brothers. Our bond survives regardless of her preference. Caleb considered the proposal carefully. It possessed certain merit. Placed the decision in Ayana's hands rather than forcing the brothers into competition. Acknowledged that she deserved agency in determining her own romantic future. Maintained the possibility that their brotherhood could survive this complication. Agreed, Caleb said, extending his hand. We both court Ayana. When she chooses, we accept her decision without resentment or jealousy. Brotherhood comes first, regardless of outcome. They shook hands, sealing the pact. Neither suspected that Ayana would reject the very premise of their agreement. The courtship continued through December and into January. Both brothers pursued Ayana's affection with increasing intensity, each bringing his particular strengths to the endeavor. Caleb fixed everything that required repair around the trading post. He built new shelves for storage. He reinforced the bar itself, strengthening joints that had loosened over years of use. He taught Ayana advanced marksmanship, taking her outside town to practice with rifles and pistols until her accuracy improved from adequate to genuinely impressive. They talked during those practice sessions. Really talked in ways Caleb had never experienced with anyone except Cole. About the nature of justice and whether bounty hunting served genuine moral purpose or simply dressed revenge in legal clothing. About the conflict between Apache and white civilizations and whether reconciliation could ever truly occur. About the future and what shape it might take for people like them, caught between worlds belonging fully to neither. Cole brought different gifts. He chopped firewood every morning before the trading post opened, ensuring Ayana never lacked fuel for heating and cooking. He sang to her while she worked, his voice surprisingly good, filling the space with melodies that made mundane tasks feel less burdensome. He taught her to track animals, showed her how to read signs in disturbed earth and broken branches. Shared skills learned through years of hunting both beasts and men. Ayana accepted attention from both brothers without rejecting either. She did not encourage one more than the other, maintained careful balance, gave no clear indication which direction her preference leaned. This democratic distribution of affection should have created jealousy between Caleb and Cole. Instead, it somehow deepened their bond, united them in common purpose, even as they technically competed. Then came the night of January 15th when everything changed. The trading post had closed early due to a particularly brutal winter storm. Snow fell so heavily that visibility extended barely 20 feet. The few customers who had braved the weather departed for home before full darkness settled. Caleb and Cole had intended to leave as well, return to their boarding house before the storm worsened further. But Ayana stopped them at the door. We need to talk, all three of us. It has become necessary. She locked the door behind the last departing customer. Turned the sign to read closed, then faced both brothers with an expression that combined determination and vulnerability in equal measure. I know what you have both been doing these past 2 months. Courting me, competing for my attention and affection, being perfect gentlemen while waiting for me to choose between you as though I were some prize to be awarded to the winner of an unspoken contest. Caleb started to speak, but Ayana raised her hand, requesting silence. Please allow me to finish before you respond. She took a deep breath, gathering courage for whatever came next. I cannot choose. I have tried. God and Osin both know I have tried. But every time I contemplate being with one of you, I immediately think about losing the other. And that prospect breaks my heart in ways I cannot adequately describe. Cole found his voice first. So you want neither of us. You wish us to cease our courtship entirely. No. Ayana's voice emerged quiet but absolutely firm. I want both of you. Silence descended, complete and total. Caleb wondered if he had misheard, if the storm wind had distorted her words into something she had not actually said. Ayana continued, words coming faster now, as though she needed to speak them all before courage failed. I mean, I love you both. Differently, but with equal depth and commitment. Caleb, when I am with you, I feel safe, protected, like I can finally stop fighting and simply rest. Like the world will not destroy me because you stand between me and destruction. She turned to Cole. And you make me feel alive, happy, like existence offers more than mere survival, like joy remains possible even in this harsh world that has taken so much from me. She wrapped arms around herself, defensive posture, but voice remaining steady. I know this arrangement contradicts every social convention. I know people would condemn it as immoral or depraved, but here on the frontier, rules differ from civilization back east. People create their own structures. And I am asking if you are both willing, could we try, the three of us together? Caleb looked at Cole. Cole looked back at Caleb. This possibility had never entered their considerations. Sharing a woman was not merely unconventional. It violated fundamental assumptions about relationships and marriage and the proper structure of romantic bonds. But when Caleb looked at Ayana, saw the hope and fear warring in her expression, saw the courage required to voice such a request, knowing it might drive both brothers away forever, he knew his answer with absolute certainty. I am willing, Caleb said. I want to try. Cole nodded agreement. As do I. If we can make this work, if the three of us can build something together, then I see no reason to reject it, simply because others would disapprove. Relief transformed Ayana's face, made her beautiful in ways that transcended mere physical attractiveness. But practical concerns remained. How would this function? What rules govern such an arrangement? Complete honesty. Ayana answered immediately. No secrets, no hidden resentments. If anyone feels uncomfortable about any aspect, we discuss it openly. No jealousy, or at minimum, we talk about jealousy when it arises rather than letting it fester. And we keep this private, at least initially. Let the town become accustomed to seeing us together before revealing the full nature of our relationship. People will discover the truth eventually, Cole pointed out. Secrets rarely remain secret indefinitely in towns this size. Let them discover it on our terms, Ayana replied. When we are ready. When our bond has grown strong enough to withstand scrutiny and judgment. They agreed to the terms, shook hands on it, all three together, sealing a pact that would have scandalized anyone who learned of it. That night, for the first time, all three ascended the stairs to Ayana's private quarters above the trading post. The following 3 months brought Caleb happiness beyond anything he had previously experienced in his 28 years of life. The arrangement that should not have worked somehow functioned better than any conventional relationship he had witnessed. They expanded Ayana's sleeping quarters first. Caleb built a custom bed designed specifically to accommodate 3 adults comfortably, wide enough that no one felt cramped, strong enough to support the combined weight of 2 large men and 1 woman without creaking or breaking. Cole installed new windows that admitted better light and allowed air circulation. Ayana sewed curtains and quilts, transformed the utilitarian space into something approaching a genuine home. The town believed Cole and Caleb had rented rooms elsewhere in Copper Springs. They encouraged this misconception through careful management of appearances. No one needed to know that the Holloway brothers spent their nights in Ayana's bed rather than at a boarding house. Daily rhythms emerged naturally. Caleb woke earliest, made coffee, while Cole chopped firewood, and Ayana prepared breakfast. They ate together, planned the day's activities, stole small touches when circumstances permitted. Days involved hunting and odd jobs for the brothers, while Ayana operated the trading post with her customary efficiency. Evenings they gathered in the private quarters after the business closed. Sometimes they talked for hours about philosophy and politics and their dreams for the future. Other times they played cards, or read aloud from books, or simply existed together in comfortable silence. And nights were sacred, reserved for intimacy that taught Caleb things about connection and vulnerability he had never imagined possible. He learned that sharing a woman with his brother created no jealousy or competition. When Cole made love to Ayanna, Caleb felt gratitude rather than exclusion. Gratitude that she experienced joy. Gratitude that his brother could provide something Caleb himself might not offer in that particular moment. Gratitude to participate in something larger than individual desire. The three of them moved together with synchronization that seemed choreographed but emerged naturally. Caleb gentle and methodical, Cole passionate and spontaneous, Ayanna receptive to both approaches, each man complementing what the other provided until she existed in a state of being cherished from all sides simultaneously. One night in February, lying in darkness with Ayanna between them, she spoke words that changed everything. I love you. Simple words, 3 syllables. But they transformed the arrangement from experimental to permanent in Caleb's heart. Both of you, Ayanna continued, her voice thick with emotion. I know this love contradicts every rule about proper affection, but I love you equally and completely. Nothing contradicts genuine love, Cole said quietly. Love exists outside rules and conventions. It simply is. I love you too. Caleb added his hand, finding both Cole's and Ayanna's in the darkness. Both of you, you are my family now, the family I choose rather than the one I was born into. What he said, Cole agreed with characteristic brevity. They lay connected in the darkness, 3 separate individuals, becoming a single unit bound by choice and commitment. That night, Caleb understood marriage more deeply than any ceremony could have taught him. Marriage was not legal contract or social approval. Marriage was this, choosing each other, committing to weather whatever came as a united front. In his heart, though no vows were spoken aloud, Caleb married them both that night, took silent oaths to protect and cherish and remain faithful regardless of what the future held. One in front, one behind, always protecting what mattered most. The pregnancy, Caleb knew about the pregnancy before Ayanna acknowledged it even to herself. Early May brought the first signs. Ayanna began experiencing morning sickness, rushing to the wash basin each dawn to retch quietly while trying not to wake the brothers sleeping beside her. She attributed the nausea to spoiled food or bad water, or a dozen other explanations, anything except the obvious truth. But Caleb recognized the symptoms. He had seen them before 5 years earlier when his sister Emma carried the child that would ultimately cost her life. The morning sickness. The profound exhaustion that struck in mid-afternoon despite adequate sleep. The subtle changes in Ayanna's body, breasts, fuller and more sensitive skin, taking on a particular glow. All the small signs added together to create certainty. He shared his suspicions with Cole. His brother observed Ayanna for 1 full day, then nodded agreement. We need to tell her we know. Continuing to pretend serves no useful purpose. How do we approach this conversation, Caleb asked. This represents delicate territory. Directly and honestly, Cole replied, like we approach everything else. So the next morning after Ayanna finished being sick, Cole knelt before her and spoke with characteristic bluntness. How long are you going to pretend you are not pregnant? Ayanna went completely still. I do not understand what you mean. Cole took her hands in his, much larger ones, his voice gentle despite the directness. Ayanna, you are a terrible liar. You have been sick every morning for 2 weeks. Your body is changing in ways we both recognize. Caleb and I are not blind. Tears began streaming down her face. I was going to tell you. I simply needed time to accept the reality myself first. Caleb sat beside her, placed his hand on her shoulder. How long have you known? A month, perhaps. I missed my monthly courses twice. I tried to deny the possibility, but the signs became impossible to ignore. There is a baby. Our baby. Our baby. Not hers alone, not Caleb's or Cole's individually. Theirs collectively. I am frightened, Ayanna admitted, her voice breaking. My mother died giving birth to my younger brother. He died as well. Childbirth kills women constantly on the frontier. The nearest real doctor practices 3 days away. Winter may close the mountain passes before I deliver. If complications arise, if something goes wrong during labor, I could die. I could leave both of you alone. Nothing will go wrong, Caleb said, with more confidence than he felt. We will not allow it. You cannot promise that. No one can promise safety during childbirth. She spoke truth. But Caleb made the promise anyway. We will do everything humanly possible to keep you safe. We will ride through blizzards to fetch doctors if necessary. We will sell everything we own to pay for the best medical care available, whatever it requires. When will the baby arrive? Cole asked gently. Late spring or early summer, I think. The timing is uncertain. Caleb performed quick mental arithmetic. Conception occurred in late February or early March, which meant the child could belong to either brother with equal probability. The thought should have created tension or jealousy. Instead, it somehow deepened his sense of connection to both Ayanna and Cole. It does not matter which of us fathered the child biologically, Cole said clearly, thinking along similar lines. This baby belongs to all three of us equally. Anyone who questions that will answer to my cult, Caleb added. That drew a genuine laugh from Ayanna despite her tears. My violent protectors. Damn right, both brothers said simultaneously. Over the following weeks, they prepared for the coming child with the same intensity they had once brought to tracking dangerous outlaws. Caleb rode to the next town and purchased medical textbooks about pregnancy and childbirth. He studied those texts the way he once studied tracking manuals, memorizing symptoms and complications, learning everything available about delivering babies safely. Cole assumed all heavy labor around the trading post. He refused to allow Ayanna to lift anything heavier than a whiskey bottle. He chopped firewood and hauled water and carried supply crates as though she were made of spun glass that might shatter under the slightest strain. At night, they worshipped her changing body with reverent hands. The small swell of her abdomen that grew more prominent daily, the increased fullness of her breasts. Every new curve and change that proved life grew within her. You grow more beautiful each day, Caleb told her one night, his hands tracing the gentle roundness of her belly. Knowing you carry our child represents the most incredible thing I have ever witnessed. Absolute perfection. Cole agreed, his mouth trailing kisses across her stomach. But beneath the joy lurked constant fear. Fear of losing Ayanna the way they had lost Emma. Fear that this miracle would transform into tragedy. Caleb found himself praying for the first time since Emma's death 5 years prior. Praying to any god who might listen, making desperate bargains in the darkness. Keep her safe. Keep them both safe. I will trade anything. My life, my soul, anything you demand. Just let them survive. The crisis, winter arrived early and brutal to Copper Springs. By mid-November, snow had accumulated 3 feet deep in places. Temperatures dropped so low that water froze solid overnight. Horses needed extra feed to maintain body heat. People died from exposure if they wandered too far from shelter. Business at the trading post slowed to barely sustainable levels. Only the most desperate or the most addicted to alcohol ventured out in such cold. The income that had seemed adequate during summer and fall suddenly proved insufficient for winter survival. Caleb checked the financial ledgers one night, while Ayanna slept her belly round with 6 months of a pregnancy, making comfortable rest difficult to achieve. The numbers painted a brutal picture. Current savings totaled $127. Weekly expenses for food, fuel, and basic supplies ran $45. Simple mathematics indicated less than 3 weeks before complete financial collapse. The bounty money from the Comanche raid had been spent on renovations and medical techs and preparations for the baby. They had believed their savings sufficient. They had miscalculated severely. We need to discuss our financial situation, Caleb told Cole the following morning. The severity requires immediate attention. I know, Cole replied. I have been monitoring the accounts as well. The situation approaches desperation. We could accept another bounty, something local and relatively safe. We declared ourselves retired from that profession. We gave our word. We also gave our word to provide for our family. Currently, we are failing that obligation. Cole ran both hands through his hair, a gesture of profound frustration that Caleb recognized because he made the identical motion when stressed. Allow me time to consider alternatives. There must be another solution. But no alternative presented itself. They had attempted every possible avenue. Odd jobs around town paid barely enough for daily food. The trading post generated insufficient profit during winter. And with a baby arriving in a few months, they needed security, not desperate scrambling. The Pinkerton agents arrived 3 days later on a Tuesday afternoon. Caleb was restocking whiskey bottles when 3 men entered wearing city clothes, clean-shaven and professional in appearance. The lead agent had steel gray hair and eyes like a hunting hawk. He introduced himself as Harrison Blackwell. Holloway Brothers, I have been tracking you for several weeks. We are retired from bounty hunting, Cole said flatly, emerging from the storeroom. So I have heard. Congratulations on settling down with your woman. Blackwell's eyes found Ayanna serving another customer, his gaze lingering on her obviously pregnant state. I did not realize you had started a family. How very domestic. Something in his tone made Caleb's hand drift toward his holstered Colt. State your business quickly. Blackwell produced a wanted poster from his coat. The face printed on it was familiar from various territorial circulars. Marcus Blackwood wanted for multiple murders, armed robbery, assault with deadly weapons. The bounty number printed at the bottom made Caleb's breath catch. $50,000. His two brothers carry bounties of $20,000 each, Blackwell continued. Total compensation of $90,000 if you bring them all in, preferably alive, though dead is acceptable. That sum represented more money than most men earned in a lifetime. Enough to buy a ranch. Enough to ensure Ayanna never worked another day unless she chose to. Enough to provide their child with every advantage, education and opportunity and security. But it also represented the most dangerous bounty in the entire territory. We are retired, Caleb repeated firmly. I understand you have a child on the way. $90,000 purchases considerable security, medical care during delivery, a safe home, a guaranteed future. It also purchases a funeral if we die pursuing Blackwood. Blackwell leaned closer, lowering his voice so only the brothers could hear. There is something else you should know. Marcus Blackwood participated in the Fort Apache massacre. 18 years ago, he was one of the soldiers who burned the village and killed the inhabitants. Caleb's blood transformed to ice water in his veins. You have confirmed this information, absolutely. He brags about it in saloons when drunk, calls it cleaning up savages. He claims to remember a little girl who escaped during the massacre. Says he wishes he had checked the bodies more carefully to ensure no survivors. Blackwood was speaking about Ayanna. She does not know this information, Caleb said. Perhaps she should, Blackwell replied. This transcends money, Mr. Holloway. This represents justice for your wife's murdered family. For all the people Blackwood has killed in the 18 years since. Someone must stop him. And you two are the finest trackers in the territory. After the Pinkertons departed, Caleb and Cole sat Ayanna down and explained everything. The money, Blackwood's participation at Fort Apache, the impossible decision they faced. No, Ayanna said immediately, her voice shaking. Absolutely not. I will not permit you to risk your lives. We need the money desperately, Cole said gently. Without it, we face starvation or worse. I do not care about money. I care about you both coming home alive. Ayanna, please listen. Caleb took her hands carefully. If we do not accept this hunt, someone else will attempt it and likely fail. Blackwood will continue killing. And eventually he may decide to finish what he started at Fort Apache. He knows you survived. He might come for you, then we will confront that threat when or if it occurs. Or we confront it now on our own terms while we control timing and circumstances. They argued for hours, Ayanna refusing to budge, Caleb and Cole trying to make her understand the financial reality. Finally exhausted and overwrought, she went to bed. The brothers sat in heavy silence. We cannot force her agreement, Cole said. No, but we also cannot allow our family to starve or risk Blackwood appearing when we are unprepared. Then what do we do? Caleb had no answer. 1 week later, Ayanna discovered something that changed her position entirely. She had been sorting through John Whitmore's possessions stored in the attic above the trading post. She descended holding a leather journal, her face pale. My father knew, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. About Fort Apache, about who participated. She opened the journal to an entry dated 2 months before Whitmore's death. Caleb read the neat handwriting, each word striking like a physical blow. The entry described an encounter in Silver Creek with a soldier named Marcus Blackwood, a tall man with a distinctive scar down his left cheek. The soldier had been drinking heavily and boasting about the good old days at Fort Apache. He claimed to have personally killed 6 Apaches, 3 men, 2 women, and 1 child. But he had missed one victim, a little girl who hid under blankets. He laughed about it, said he wished he had been more thorough. Whitmore had wanted to kill Blackwood immediately, but he was old and sick, and Ayanna needed him. So he wrote down the name instead, hoping someday someone would make Blackwood pay for his crimes. The journal shook in Ayanna's hands. My father wanted justice, wanted Blackwood to answer for what he did, but he lacked the strength to pursue it himself. You have no obligation, Caleb began. Yes, I do. Ayanna looked between both brothers, tears streaming, but voice steady. I must let you go. Because if I refuse, I choose fear over justice. I choose to let my mother's killer walk free because I fear being alone. Ayanna Caleb started to protest. But you must promise me something. She gripped both their hands hard enough to hurt. Promise you will exercise extreme caution. Promise you will return. Promise you will not leave me alone to raise this baby without fathers. Caleb pulled her into his arms, Cole wrapping around both from behind. We promise. On our lives, on Emma's memory, on our unborn child, we promise to return. How long will you be absent? 6 to 8 weeks, Cole estimated. We will leave adequate provisions. Rebecca has agreed to check on you daily. Sheriff Thompson will maintain extra vigilance. Doc Miller will examine you twice weekly. You have already arranged everything. We wanted to be prepared if you agreed. She pulled back, looked at them with red-rimmed eyes. I am agreeing, but I hate this necessity. I hate that we need the money. I hate that my mother's killer still lives. I hate that you must risk your lives for our survival. We hunt him not just for money, Caleb said. We hunt him for justice, for your mother, for every person he has murdered, for our baby's future security. That night they made love with desperate intensity, memorizing every touch, every sound, every sensation, knowing it might be the last time. Afterward, Ayanna cried silent tears that broke Caleb's heart. I cannot lose you, she whispered. Either of you. I survived Fort Apache, but I will not survive losing you. You will not lose us, Cole promised. We are coming back. Both of us. I swear it. Morning arrived far too quickly. They packed saddlebags with ammunition and supplies and winter gear, checked rifles and revolvers and knives, every weapon they owned cleaned and ready for use. Ayanna stood in the doorway, one hand resting on her swollen belly. 6 months pregnant and beautiful and terrified. Caleb kissed her first, long and deep, attempting to pour every emotion into that single kiss. Take care of our baby. We will return before you realize we have been gone. Cole's turn. He pressed his forehead against hers. I love you. Both of you. Stay safe. They mounted horses. The sun rose pink and gold over distant mountains. Caleb looked back one final time. Ayanna stood in the snow, one hand raised in farewell, the other cradling her pregnant belly. His gut twisted with premonition. This felt wrong. Leaving felt fundamentally wrong. But they had made their choice, given their word. And Holloway brothers never broke promises. They rode out of Copper Springs into winter dawn, heading toward danger and death and the man who had murdered Ayanna's family. Behind them, the woman they loved watched until they disappeared completely from sight. Neither brother knew it then, but that moment marked the beginning of the worst and most important 6 weeks of their lives. Because sometimes losing everything teaches you what you truly possess. Sometimes facing death makes you appreciate life. And sometimes love requires riding into hell itself. Trusting the people you love will find a way to pull you back. The abandoned silver mine swallowed Caleb and Cole Holloway into darkness so complete it felt like being buried alive before death actually claimed them. The temperature inside the tunnels dropped 20 degrees below the already frigid mountain air outside. Their breath formed clouds of white vapor that hung suspended in the beam of their single lantern. Caleb counted muzzle flashes by pure instinct, honed through 12 years of hunting dangerous men. 10 distinct positions, exactly as Pinkerton intelligence had predicted. Marcus Blackwood and his remaining gang members had gone to ground in this network of abandoned mining tunnels, like rats retreating into holes when predators approached. Split up, Caleb whispered to Cole, his voice barely audible, even in the profound silence. You take the left tunnel system. I will pursue the right. We squeeze them toward the center, where Blackwell's agents wait outside the main entrance. They have nowhere to run except into our guns or into federal custody. Cole nodded once, pale green eyes glinting in lamplight. His hand moved to his wounded shoulder, the injury from 2 weeks prior still healing slowly despite the doctor's best efforts in Santa Fe. The movement betrayed pain he refused to acknowledge verbally. Be careful, Caleb added. Your shoulder is not fully healed. Do not take unnecessary risks. When have I ever taken unnecessary risks? Cole's attempt at humor fell flat in the oppressive darkness. Every single day of your life, Caleb replied. That is precisely what concerns me. They separated into different tunnel branches, each man carrying a Winchester rifle and two fully loaded Colt revolvers. The plan was sound tactically. Force Blackwood's gang toward the center, eliminate escape routes, capture or kill depending on resistance level. They had executed similar strategies dozens of times during their bounty hunting years. But something felt wrong. Caleb's instincts developed through years of staying alive in situations designed to kill him, screamed warnings he could not quite articulate. The mine was too quiet, too still, like a trap waiting to spring shut. He advanced through the darkness, rifle-ready finger resting lightly on the trigger. His eyes adjusted gradually to the minimal light, learning to read shadows and variations in the blackness. Boot prints in the dust showed recent passage. Discarded food tins and empty whiskey bottles littered the tunnel floor. Blackwood's gang had definitely been using this location as a hideout. The first guard appeared without warning, stepping from a side tunnel with a rifle already raised. Caleb reacted on pure reflex, bringing his Winchester up and firing in one fluid motion. The report of the gunshot was deafening in the confined space, echoing off stone walls until it seemed like a dozen weapons firing simultaneously. The guard dropped rifle, clattering on rock. Caleb ejected the spent shell casing and chambered another round without conscious thought, muscle memory taking over. He pressed against the tunnel wall, listening for any reaction to the gunshot. Holloway Marcus Blackwood's voice echoed through the mine tunnels, distorted by distance and stone until determining the source became impossible. You really think you can take us all? You are just two men against my entire gang. Caleb did not respond. Never reveal your position by speaking first rule of hunting men in confined spaces. He moved forward carefully, checking each side tunnel before passing, ensuring no one could ambush from behind. Cole's Winchester fired 3 times in rapid succession from somewhere in the left tunnel system. The sound carried clearly through the interconnected passages. That meant 2 more of Blackwood's men down, reducing the odds from 10 against 2 to 7 against 2. Still dangerous, but increasingly manageable. Caleb advanced deeper into the mine, following boot prints and the smell of unwashed men and gunpowder. The tunnel ahead narrowed, forcing him to turn sideways to squeeze through a particularly tight section. His rifle scraped against stone, the sound horrifically loud in the silence. A man jumped from the shadows, knife gleaming in lamplight. One of Blackwood's younger brothers, the one with the distinctive scar through his left eyebrow. He was fast. Caleb registered that detail even while reacting. The knife thrust came at Caleb's throat with killing intent and professional precision. Caleb blocked with his rifle barrel, felt the knife blade scrape against steel with a metallic shriek. The attacker was inside his guard now, too close for the rifle to be effective. Caleb drove his knee upward into the man's stomach with all the force he could generate in the confined space. Air exploded from the attacker's lungs in a pained gasp. As the man doubled over, Caleb brought his rifle stock down hard on the back of his skull. Bone cracked with a sickening sound. The attacker crumpled to the tunnel floor and did not move again. 5 down now, 5 remaining. The mathematics of survival continued to improve. Then Caleb heard the sound that stopped his heart. Cole screaming. Not a shout of warning or battle cry, but a genuine scream of pain, the kind that meant serious injury, the kind Cole only made when hurt badly enough that he could not suppress the reaction. Caleb ran toward the sound, caution forgotten entirely. Cole, where are you? He found his brother in a side chamber, leaning against the tunnel wall with his right hand pressed hard against his left shoulder. Blood seeped between his fingers, dark and viscous in the lamplight. But Cole's gun was still up, still ready, and 3 bodies lay scattered around the chamber. Got me good, Cole grunted through clenched teeth, fighting to control the pain. But I got 3 of them first. That makes 8 down total between us. Only 2 left besides Blackwood himself. Can you move? Yeah. Hurts worse than anything I have experienced since that Comanche arrow at age 19, but I can move. Caleb helped Cole to his feet, supporting his brother's weight while keeping his own rifle ready. They moved together back toward the mine entrance, covering each other's blind spots, with the unconscious coordination that came from decades of operating as a matched pair. That was when they heard it. A hissing sound, faint but distinctive and terrifying once you recognize what it meant. A lit fuse burning toward dynamite, run, Caleb said. Cole, we have to run now. They ran stumbling over loose rocks and mining equipment, Cole gasping with pain as every jarring step sent fresh agony through his wounded shoulder. Behind them, Marcus Blackwood's laughter echoed through the tunnels, high and manic and triumphant. Enjoy your grave, boys, Blackwood's voice followed them. This mine is your tomb now. The explosion hit like the hand of an angry god. The concussion wave lifted Caleb off his feet and slammed him against the tunnel wall with force that drove every molecule of air from his lungs. His head cracked against stone, and the world went white, then red, then black. When awareness returned, everything had changed. Darkness pressed down with physical weight. Dust filled the air so thick it was impossible to breathe without choking. And the silence, once oppressive, had been replaced by an even more terrible sound. The groaning of unstable rock, the settling of thousands of tons of stone that might collapse completely at any moment. Caleb managed to gasp out, Cole, are you alive? Nothing, just the sound of rocks shifting and his own ragged breathing. Cole, louder now, panic beginning to claw at the edges of his control. Yeah, Cole's voice emerged weak and pained from somewhere to Caleb's left. Yeah, I am alive. You alive. Caleb fumbled in his vest pocket, fingers clumsy with shock and dust. He found matches struck one against the rock. The tiny flame revealed their prison. They were trapped in a pocket maybe 10 feet square. Tunnel completely collapsed on both sides. Rock and timber and debris everywhere. The air already felt thin, stale. They had hours at most before oxygen ran out completely. This is it, Caleb thought. This is how we die, buried alive in a nameless mine in New Mexico, while Ayana waits for us in Copper Springs, growing larger, with our child every day. The match burned down to his fingers. He dropped it, plunging them back into absolute darkness. I am sorry, Cole said into the black, for getting you killed, for leaving Ayana alone with a baby to raise, for breaking the promise we made to her. Shut up, Caleb cut him off harder than he intended. This is not your fault. We made this choice together. We always make choices together. Silence settled again, heavy and suffocating. Caleb could hear Cole breathing ragged and pained. The shoulder wound was bad, probably bleeding worse now from the exertion and the impact. If they did not get out soon, if they did not find help, Cole might bleed to death before the air ran out. You remember when we were 8 years old, Cole's voice drifted through the darkness. When Pa caught us trying to ride that bull, he said was too dangerous. Despite everything, despite the crushing certainty of approaching death, Caleb found himself almost laughing. He beat our backside so hard we could not sit down for a week. But we did it together, Cole said softly. We always did everything together. Got born together on the same day from the same womb. Learned to shoot together. Started hunting bounties together. Fell in love with the same woman together. And if we die today, we die together too. That is not such a terrible thing, is it? Better than dying alone. I do not want to die at all, Caleb said. I want to go home. I want to see Ayana again. I want to meet our daughter and watch her grow up and teach her to ride horses and shoot rifles and be strong like her mother. So do I, Cole agreed. So we need to find a way out of this tomb. Caleb struck another match. In the brief flare of light, he studied their prison more carefully, looking for any weakness, any possible escape route. The collapsed tunnel entrances looked completely impassable. Tons of rock and timber blocked both directions. Even with tools and unlimited time, they could not dig through that much debris. But then he felt it. The faintest whisper of air movement against his face, so subtle he almost missed it. Air current meant an opening somewhere, a crack or fissure that connected to the outside world. You feel that, Caleb asked? Air moving? Yeah. Cole's voice sharpened with hope. Means there is a way out. We just need to find it. They started searching by touch, running hands over every surface of their prison, feeling for any gap or opening. Caleb's fingers were soon bloody from scraping against sharp rock, but he kept searching. The alternative was dying here, and that was unacceptable. He had made a promise to Ayana, promised to return. Holloway brothers did not break their word. Here Cole called out from the far corner. I found a crack. Narrow, but it goes somewhere. I can feel air coming through. Caleb joined him, filling along the fissure Cole had discovered. It was maybe 6 inches wide at the entrance, but seemed to widen further in. Not large enough for a man to fit through yet, but possibly expandable if they could move some rocks. They began digging. Hands bleeding, nails, torn fingers, raw meat from clawing at stone and earth. Cole's shoulder wound reopened completely. Caleb could hear him gasping with pain, but his brother kept digging. Neither spoke. All their energy focused on survival, on keeping the promise they had made, on getting home. Time lost all meaning in the darkness. Could have been an hour. Could have been 3. Caleb's world narrowed to the immediate task. Move this rock. Clear that debris. Widen the opening by another inch. Keep digging. Keep fighting. Never surrender. Finally, his hand broke through into open air on the other side. The crack had widened to perhaps 18 inches across, just barely large enough for a man to squeeze through if he exhaled completely and ignored the rock scraping skin from his ribs. Got it, Caleb announced. I broke through. We can get out. You go first, Cole said. Your shoulder is not wounded. You can pull yourself through easier. Together or not at all, Caleb replied firmly. I will go through first, then pull you after. No arguments. He squeezed into the fissure, exhaling every bit of air from his lungs to make himself as narrow as possible. Rocks scraped against his chest and back, tore his shirt opened, long, shallow cuts across his skin. For one terrible moment, he stuck wedged so tight that moving forward or backwards seemed equally impossible. Panic clawed at his throat. Images flashed through his mind. Ayanna alone, the baby born without a father. Cole dying in the darkness because Caleb got stuck in a hole and could not pull him through. Then something inside him shifted, not physically, but mentally. He thought about Ayanna waiting for them, about the daughter they had not yet met, about Cole depending on him to get them both out alive, and he found strength he did not know he possessed. Caleb pulled himself forward with sheer determination, ignoring the pain as rock flayed skin from his ribcage. Pulled with arms and pushed with legs and refused to accept the possibility of failure. And suddenly he was through, emerging into a larger tunnel on the other side. Cole, he called back through the fissure. I am through. Send your good arm first, and I will pull you. The process of extracting Cole took longer and proved infinitely more agonizing for both of them. The wounded shoulder made it nearly impossible for Cole to push himself effectively. Caleb had to grasp his brother's extended arm and pull with every ounce of strength while Cole tried to push with his legs and stay conscious through the pain. Finally, after what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, Cole emerged on the other side. He collapsed on the tunnel floor, breathing in harsh gasps, his wounded shoulder bleeding freely again. Can you walk? Caleb asked. I can walk, Cole confirmed. Lead on. They stumbled through the darkness, following the air current toward what they hoped was an exit. Caleb's sense of direction, honed through years of tracking men across featureless wilderness, told him they were heading roughly east away from the main mine entrance, where the explosion had occurred. After perhaps an hour of painful progress, Caleb saw light ahead. Real light, not the imaginary phosphorescence that prolonged darkness could trick the brain into seeing. Gray winter daylight filtering through an opening in the rock face. They emerged into dawn, pink and gold light, painting snow-covered mountains in colors so beautiful after the tomb darkness that Caleb felt tears forming in his eyes. They had survived. Against every probability, through sheer stubborn refusal to die, they had survived. Pinkerton agents came running toward them, Harrison Blackwell in the lead. Jesus Christ, we thought you were dead. The entire tunnel system collapsed. We tried to dig you out, but the instability made it impossible. Where is Blackwood? Caleb demanded. Did he escape headed south with his 2 surviving brothers? Blackwell confirmed. We tried to stop them, but they had horses ready and a head start. They are gone. Caleb wanted to scream. They had come so close. Trapped Blackwood engaged his gang, nearly succeeded. And now the man who had murdered Ayanna's family rode free, probably laughing about burying the Holloway brothers alive. But fury would have to wait. Cole collapsed suddenly, just went down like his legs had turned to water beneath him. Caleb caught him before he hit the ground, felt how hot his brother's skin had become. Fever. The shoulder wound was infected badly. Get him to Santa Fe, Caleb told Blackwell. Best doctor in town, I do not care what it costs. Move now. The journey to Santa Fe took 3 days that felt like 3 weeks. Cole drifted in and out of consciousness, burning with fever, sometimes calling out for Ayanna, sometimes for their dead sister Emma, sometimes just screaming wordlessly as the infection ravaged his system. Caleb rode beside the wagon carrying his brother, watching helplessly as Cole fought a battle that might kill him, even though they had escaped the mine. He prayed constantly, making desperate bargains with Ra and Usin and any spiritual entity that might be listening. Save him. I will give anything. My life, my soul, every dollar I will ever earn. Just save my brother. Do not let him die because I dragged him on this hunt. They reached Santa Fe on the third evening. Dr. Patterson, the best physician in town, took one look at Cole's infected shoulder and his expression turned grim. The wound is badly infected. I need to extract the bullet fragments still embedded in the tissue and drain the infection. This will be extremely painful and there is no guarantee of success. Do whatever is necessary, Caleb said. Save him. The surgery lasted 4 hours. Caleb sat outside the doctor's office, listening to his brother scream as Patterson cut into infected flesh without adequate anesthesia, dug out bullet fragments, drained pus and infection. Each scream felt like a knife in Caleb's own chest. When Patterson finally emerged, blood covering his apron and hands, Caleb stood on shaking legs. Will he live? If infection does not return, if the fever breaks within the next 24 hours, then yes, he should survive. But he needs complete rest for at least 2 weeks before attempting any travel. That shoulder requires time to heal properly. 2 weeks. Caleb did the mathematics quickly. They had already been gone 4 weeks. 2 more weeks meant 6 total. Ayanna would be nearly 7 months pregnant by the time they returned. The baby might come early, might arrive before they could get home. The thought of Ayanna giving birth alone without either of her husbands present made Caleb feel physically ill. But Cole needed those 2 weeks. Rushing his recovery might kill him, and arriving home alive was more important than arriving quickly. Caleb rented a room at a boarding house near the doctor's office. For the next week, he watched his brother fight. Fever listened to Cole's delirious mutterings, change sweat-soaked sheets, and forced water past cracked lips. He slept in a chair beside the bed, startling awake at every sound, terrified that this time Cole had stopped breathing. On the 8th day, the fever finally broke. Cole opened his eyes, actually focused on Caleb's face, and spoke coherently for the first time since the mine. Did we get Blackwood? No, Caleb admitted. He escaped while we were buried, headed south probably to Mexico. Then we failed. We survived. That is not failure. A letter arrived on the 10th day. The boarding house keeper brought it up, gave Caleb a sympathetic look as she handed over the envelope. Ayanna's handwriting neat and careful despite obvious stress. Caleb's hand shook as he opened it. My loves, it has been 4 weeks since you departed Copper Springs. I miss you both more than language can adequately express. The baby kicks now, strong, vigorous movements that wake me at night. I think she knows her fathers are absent, that something is wrong. I place my hands where she kicks and tell her about you, about how brave you are, how much you love her already, even though you have not met her yet. Sheriff Thompson checks on me every day as promised. Rebecca brings food and sits with me during evenings. Doc Miller examines me weekly and reports the baby is healthy and growing well according to expected schedule. But the trading post feels so empty without you both. The bed is too large. The nights are too quiet and full of fearful thoughts I cannot suppress. Please be safe. Please come home soon. I try not to imagine all the terrible things that could happen to you, but fear accompanies me constantly. Every morning I wake hoping for a letter. Every evening I pray for your safety to whatever gods might listen. All my love, Ayanna. Caleb read that letter 5 times until the words blurred together. He imagined Ayanna's voice speaking them soft and worried, pictured her lying in their bed, hands on her swollen belly, talking to their daughter about fathers who might never return. Is she doing well? Cole asked, his voice weak but lucid. She is managing. Misses us terribly, but managing. We need to get back to her. Not until you are healed properly, Caleb said firmly. Rushing your recovery serves no purpose if it kills you. Blackwood is getting farther away every day we delay. I do not give one damn about Blackwood, Caleb replied, surprised by the vehemence in his own voice. You are my brother. You are my priority, not him. Cole stared at him with something like wonder in his pale green eyes. You mean that? Of course I mean it. What did you think? I thought maybe you would leave me here to heal while you pursued Blackwood alone. Finish the hunt we started. Caleb moved to the bedside, gripped Cole's uninjured hand hard enough to hurt. Listen to me. We are brothers. Twins. We came into this world together and we will leave it together eventually. But I am not leaving you here alone while I chase revenge. You are more important than any bounty, more important than justice for Fort Apache, more important than anything except Ayanna and our daughter. Tears leaked from the corners of Cole's eyes, ran down into his hair. I love you, Caleb. I love you too, you stubborn fool. Now rest. Get better. So we can both go home. The days crawled past with agonizing slowness. Caleb wrote to Ayanna every evening, telling her Cole was healing, they would return soon. He left out the parts about the mine collapse, the near-death experience, how close they had come to dying and leaving her alone forever. 2 weeks after the mine incident, Dr. Patterson declared Cole fit to travel with certain restrictions. You can ride, but not hard. No heavy labor, no fighting. That shoulder needs another month before it can handle significant strain. We are going home, not going to war, Caleb replied. He can rest during the journey. They were preparing to depart Santa Fe when Pinkerton agent Blackwell appeared at the boarding house again. He looked like he had not slept in days, hollow-eyed and dust-covered. Got news, Blackwell announced without preamble. It is bad. Caleb felt his stomach clench with dread. What kind of bad? Blackwood did not run to Mexico like we assumed. He doubled back. Last confirmed sighting was 2 days ago, approximately 50 miles from Copper Springs. He is heading for your wife. The world tilted sideways. Caleb grabbed the door frame to steady himself, heard Cole cursing behind him in language so vile it would have made a sailor blush. How do you know? Caleb demanded. How can you be certain one of his men got drunk in Silver Creek, started bragging to impress a woman? Said Blackwood is obsessed with finishing what he started at Fort Apache. Said he has been tracking the Apache woman for years, waiting for the right moment to strike. And now that she is pregnant and you two are supposedly dead in a mine collapse, he thinks she is vulnerable. Easy prey. Blackwood planned to murder Ayanna, murder their child, finish the massacre he started 18 years ago. How far to Copper Spring? Cole asked, already reaching for his gun belt despite the pain the movement caused. 3 days hard riding, Blackwell replied. Maybe 2.5 if you push the horses to their limits. We cannot push, Caleb said, looking at Cole. Your shoulder cannot handle hard riding yet. The strain could reopen the wound or worse. Cole's expression turned to granite, utterly implacable. I do not care about my shoulder. Our wife is in danger. Our child is in danger. We are going, right now, today. Mr. Holloway, your injury is serious. The stress of hard riding could kill you or permanently cripple your arm. Cole cut Blackwell off with a look that would have frozen hell itself. I said we are going. My wife, our wife, is pregnant with our child, and a man who massacred her family is riding to kill her. You can come with us or get out of the way, but nothing is going to stop us from reaching her. Nothing. They saddled horses within the hour, loaded extra ammunition, filled canteens. The boarding house keeper tried to give them food for the journey, but Caleb waved her off. Every minute counted. They would eat in the saddle or not at all. As they rode out of Santa Fe, Cole spoke without looking at Caleb. If we do not arrive in time, if she is dead when we get there, I am putting a bullet in Blackwood's brain. Slowly. Make him suffer for days before he dies. You will have to wait your turn behind me, Caleb replied. They rode through the afternoon and into the night, only stopping when the horses absolutely required water and brief rest. Caleb's backside went numb after the first 6 hours, thighs cramping from gripping the saddle. Cole's face grew progressively paler, drawn with pain he refused to acknowledge verbally, but he never complained, never asked to slow down or stop. Around midnight, they made cold camp in a small canyon. No fire could not risk revealing their position to anyone who might be watching. They chewed jerky, and hardtack washed it down with water that tasted like old leather from the canteen. You should have left me in Santa Fe, Cole said into the darkness. Could have been there already if you had ridden alone. And let you miss the opportunity to shoot Blackwood yourself, Caleb kept his voice light, despite the crushing weight of fear in his chest. I would never deprive you of that pleasure. Cole laughed, a short bark that turned into a pained grunt. Shoulder is bleeding again. How bad? Just seeping, not gushing. I can make it. Cole, if you need to stop, if the pain becomes too severe. I do not need to stop, Cole interrupted firmly. Listen to me. If Ayanna dies, if our baby dies because we were not there to protect them, then I do not want to live anyway. So either we arrive in time or my shoulder bleeds me out on the trail. Either way, the problem resolves itself. Caleb wanted to argue to tell his brother that was dramatic nonsense, but he understood exactly how Cole felt, because he felt the same way. Ayanna had given them something they never thought they would possess: love and purpose and a future beyond violence. The thought of losing her, of burying her and their child, was genuinely unbearable. "We will make it in time," Caleb said with more confidence than he felt. "We have to." Meanwhile, 3 days' ride away in Copper Springs, Ayanna stood at the window of the trading post, with one hand pressed to her 7-month pregnant belly, watching the street for riders who did not come. 6 weeks had passed since Caleb and Cole departed. 6 weeks without word, except for one letter from Caleb 3 weeks prior saying Cole had been injured, but was recovering. Nothing since then. No update, no arrival date. Just silence that grew heavier with each passing day. She had stopped sleeping properly. Lay awake most of the night, listening for hoofbeats starting at every sound, terrified it would be a stranger arriving with news that both her husbands had been killed. The baby kicked constantly now, strong enough that the movement sometimes hurt. Ayanna placed her hands over the kicks and whispered reassurances. "Your fathers will return," they promised. "We just need to be patient and strong." But doubt gnawed at her constantly. What if they could not return? What if Blackwood had killed them? What if she was alone again, just like after Fort Apache, alone and pregnant and facing a world that barely tolerated her existence? Sheriff Thompson appeared at the trading post door, his expression serious. Ayanna felt her heart drop. Bad news wore that expression. "Had a visitor asking questions about you," Thompson said without preamble. "Yesterday afternoon. Stranger I never seen before. Wanted to know if you lived alone, when your husbands would return, that sort of thing." "What did people tell him?" "Most folks said they did not know specifics, but you know how it is in small towns. Somebody always talks. Mrs. Henderson told him the Holloway boys were due back any day now from business in New Mexico." "Did you learn anything about this stranger?" Thompson shook his head grimly. "Never seen him before in my life. But he had the look of an outlaw about him. The kind of man who has killed before and would not hesitate to kill again. I am posting deputies to watch the trading post day and night. You do not go anywhere alone." "Understood?" Ayanna nodded, but her mind was already racing ahead. She needed to warn Caleb and Cole, but how? They were somewhere between here and Santa Fe, possibly injured, possibly unable to travel quickly. No way to reach them with a message. That was when the second Pinkerton agent arrived. Not Harrison Blackwell, but a younger man, nervous and clearly uncomfortable delivering whatever news he carried. "Mrs. Holloway," he said, removing his hat respectfully. "I have information about your husbands." The world seemed to slow down, sounds becoming muffled and distant. Ayanna gripped the counter for support, preparing for the worst. "Are they alive?" "Yes, ma'am. They cornered the Blackwood gang in a mine 2 weeks ago. There was a gunfight and an explosion. Your husband Cole was shot in the shoulder. They were trapped in a mine collapse but managed to dig themselves out. They are currently recovering in Santa Fe." Relief hit Ayanna like a physical blow, made her knees buckle. The Pinkerton reached out to steady her, helped her into a chair. "How serious is Cole's injury?" "Serious enough they are not fit to ride immediately. The doctor in Santa Fe estimates another week, perhaps 2, before they can travel safely." "I am sorry, ma'am. I know you were expecting them sooner. Another 2 weeks minimum. By then she would be 8 months pregnant, possibly more if the baby came early." "There is something else," the agent continued. "Marcus Blackwood escaped the mine engagement. We have lost track of his specific location, but we have reason to believe he may be heading in this direction. He has a personal interest in you, ma'am, dating back to the Fort Apache incident." The room seemed to tilt. Blackwood, the soldier who had laughed while her village burned, who had probably killed her mother personally, who had hunted Apache like animals and boasted about it in saloons, and now he was coming for her. "I need to go to them," Ayanna heard herself say. "To Caleb and Cole. I need to warn them that Blackwood is coming here." "Ma'am, you are 7 months pregnant. The journey to Santa Fe is 3 days by stagecoach through dangerous mountain passes in winter conditions. In your condition, traveling that distance represents enormous risk to both you and the child." "I do not care about the risk," Ayanna replied, steel entering her voice. "My husbands are injured and isolated. Blackwood is hunting me and heading for Copper Springs. I will not sit here waiting to be slaughtered like my mother. I am going to Santa Fe. Rebecca, who had been listening from the kitchen doorway, stepped forward. Then I am coming with you. You need help if God forbids something happens during the journey. Ayanna wanted to refuse to keep Rebecca safe, but she knew she could not make the trip alone. Not 7 months pregnant. Not if something went wrong. Thank you, she said simply. They hired a stagecoach and driver the next morning. Moses, a retired Buffalo soldier with kind eyes and hands scarred from a lifetime of hard labor, looked skeptical when he saw Ayanna's pregnant condition. Ma'am, I will take you wherever you need to go, but you should understand the risks. If that baby decides to arrive early, we are in serious trouble. There is no doctor between here and Santa Fe. No medical help of any kind. The baby will not come early, Ayanna said with more confidence than she felt. We have time. But even as the words left her mouth, she felt something shift low in her belly. Not quite pain, just a tightening, a warning. Her body preparing for what would come eventually. The baby kicked hard as if in protest. We should go, Ayanna said, before I lose my nerve. The stagecoach lurched into motion. Copper Springs fell away behind them, and Ayanna had the strangest sensation, like she was riding towards something that had been waiting for her since she was 6 years old, hiding under a blanket while her world burned around her. Whatever it was, she would face it. For her daughter, for Caleb and Cole, for the family they had built against all odds and against every social convention. She placed both hands on her swollen belly and whispered in Apache, the language her mother had spoken. Be strong, little one. Your fathers are coming. We just have to survive until they arrive. The baby kicked in response as if understanding. The journey to Santa Fe would take 3 days under ideal conditions. But ideal conditions rarely applied to winter travel through mountain territories. Ayanna quickly discovered that pregnancy and stagecoach travel combined into a form of torture she had not previously imagined. Every jolt sent pains shooting through her back and pelvis. The baby protested constantly, kicking and moving as if trying to escape the uncomfortable conditions. By midday of the first day, Ayanna felt nauseous and dizzy. She tried to hide it from Rebecca, not wanting to cause alarm, but her friend knew her too well. How are you feeling? Rebecca asked quietly. Like I am being shaken apart. But we must keep going. The first night they stopped at a way station, a rough cabin run by a taciturn old man who took their money without comment or conversation. The beds were straw mattresses on the floor, but Ayanna was so exhausted she barely noticed the discomfort. She dreamed of fire, of soldiers with guns, of her mother's face streaked with blood, mouthing words Ayanna could not hear over the roar of flames and screaming, and of a man with a scar down his left cheek smiling as he watched everything burn. She woke before dawn, drenched in sweat despite the winter cold. The baby was kicking frantically, had been moving all night. Ayanna placed her hands on her belly, whispered soothing words in both English and Apache, but the child would not settle. Something is wrong, she told Rebecca as they prepared to continue the journey. The baby is too active. She should not be moving this intensely. Perhaps she is simply reacting to your stress, Rebecca suggested. Babies can sense when their mothers are upset. Maybe. Or maybe the baby knew what Ayanna was only beginning to suspect. That danger was approaching, drawing closer with every hour that passed. The second day brought them through Apache Pass, a narrow canyon with rock walls rising steeply on both sides. Ayanna had traveled this route before, knew it represented the most dangerous part of the journey, the perfect location for an ambush. Moses must have thought the same because he drove the horses, hard whip cracking over their heads. They were halfway through the pass when the first shot rang out. The bullet punched through the stagecoach roof, missing Ayanna's head by perhaps 6 inches. She screamed. Rebecca pulled her down to the floor, covering Ayanna's body with her own. Bandits, Moses shouted from the driver's seat. Hold on! More gunfire erupted. The stagecoach lurched violently as Moses tried to outrun their attackers, but the canyon was too narrow, the horses already tired from a full day of travel. Your money or your lives, a rough voice called from the rocks above. Stop the coach now, or we start shooting to kill. The stagecoach skidded to a halt. Ayanna heard Moses climbing down from the driver's seat, hands presumably raised in surrender. She reached into the folds of her dress, finding the Remington revolver Caleb had given her months ago. He had insisted she carry it, always had drilled her on quick draw until her hands blistered. All those hours of practice were about to prove their worth. "Come on out, nice and easy," the bandit leader called. "Let us see what we got here." Three men appeared at the stagecoach door, rough-looking characters with guns drawn and ugly intent in their eyes. The leader, a squat man with a knife scar across his forehead, yanked the door open. His eyes widened when he saw Ayanna, her swollen belly obvious even in the dim interior. "Well now, what do we have here? A pregnant squaw and her white friend." This just got considerably more interesting. Rage cut through Ayanna's fear sharp and clean. She had spent her entire life dealing with men who saw her Apache heritage as an invitation to disrespect. Not today, never again. Her hand found the Remington. Caleb's voice echoed in her memory. Smooth draw. Aim center mass. Squeeze the trigger, do not pull. 3 rules that might keep her alive. Interesting. Ayanna kept her voice steady, conversational. "Let me show you interesting." She drew and fired in one fluid motion exactly as Caleb had taught her. The bullet caught the bandit leader square in the chest. He looked down at the spreading red stain on his shirt, surprise etched on his features, then toppled backward. The other 2 bandits stared in shock for perhaps half a second. Ayanna used that crucial hesitation. 2 more shots. One bandit went down, clutching his shoulder, screaming. The other turned to run. Moses had already drawn his own weapon, an old army revolver he had carried since his Buffalo Soldier days. He fired twice. The fleeing bandits stumbled and fell. Silence descended except for the groans of the wounded and the horse's nervous snorting. Ayanna's hands were shaking now, adrenaline making her fingers tremble. She had never killed anyone before. Never even shot at a person, just targets Caleb set up for practice. But she had done it, killed to protect herself, to protect Rebecca, to protect her unborn child. "Where did you learn to shoot like that?" Rebecca's voice mixed awe and terror in equal measure. "My husbands are bounty hunters," Ayanna replied. "Did you think they would allow me to travel unarmed?" Moses checked the bodies, confirmed none pose further threat. 2 dead, 1 wounded, badly enough, he will not cause trouble. "You saved our lives, ma'am." But as the adrenaline faded, pain bloomed in Ayanna's abdomen. Sharp, insistent, different from the vague discomfort she had been experiencing. Real contractions. "Oh no," she whispered, one hand flying to her belly. "No, no, no, not now. Please, not now." Ayanna Rebecca was at her side instantly. "What is wrong?" "Contractions. The stress, the shooting, the fear. It triggered something." "The baby is coming. Moses, we need to reach Santa Fe now." Rebecca called to the driver. As fast as these horses can run, they traveled through the remainder of the day and into the night, Ayanna breathing through increasingly intense contractions. They came every 20 minutes at first, then 15, then 10. Each one felt like her body was attempting to turn itself inside out. The baby was coming, 6 weeks early, in the middle of nowhere with no doctor and no real medical supplies. Around midnight, Moses stopped the stagecoach at an abandoned way station. The horses were completely exhausted, would collapse if pushed farther without rest. "I am sorry, ma'am," Moses said, his expression pained. "We will not make Santa Fe tonight, but regardless of how hard we push. Best we can do is make you comfortable here, see if we can slow those contractions somehow." Rebecca helped Ayanna inside the old building. It smelled of mildew and mouse droppings, but it offered shelter from the winter cold. Moses built a fire while Rebecca spread blankets on the floor, creating a makeshift bed. The contractions continued. Regular, undeniable, impossible to ignore or wish away. "I am going to have the baby," Ayanna said through tears. "Here, tonight, without Caleb or Cole. Then we will deliver her ourselves," Rebecca said with a firmness that allowed no argument. "Moses says he delivered babies during the war. We can do this. What if something goes wrong? What if I die like my mother did?" "You will not die." Rebecca gripped Ayanna's hands hard. "You are the strongest woman I have ever known. You survived Fort Apache. You survived running a business alone in a hostile town. You shot 3 bandits today while 7 months pregnant. You can survive this." Moses knelt beside them. "Ma'am, I need to examine you to determine if the baby is actually coming or if this is false labor brought on by stress." With your permission, Ayanna nodded past the point of modesty or embarrassment. Pain was everything now, overwhelming every other consideration. Moses examined her quickly and professionally. When he sat back, his expression showed both relief and concern. The baby is not coming yet. Your cervix remains closed. This is what doctors call false labor. Your body is preparing for eventual delivery, but the child is not ready to be born today. You are certain as I can be without being a real doctor. But you need to remain still and calm. Any additional stress could transform false labor into genuine labor. And delivering a baby 6 weeks early with no medical assistance would be extremely dangerous for both you and the child. Ayana lay back on the makeshift bed, breathing shakily. False labor. The baby was not coming yet. She had more time. But as hours crawled past and contractions continued weaker now, but still present, Ayana could not shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong. Not with the baby necessarily, but with everything else surrounding them. In the spaces between contractions, images came to her. Visions, the second sight that her grandmother Nayalnish had possessed that ran through the women of her family line, manifesting in moments of extreme stress or danger. She saw Caleb sitting beside a bed in a small room somewhere, saw Cole lying in that bed, pale and bandaged, heard them talking. She should be safe in Copper Springs, Cole was saying. Unless she does something crazy, Caleb replied. Like come looking for us, she would not do that. She is smarter than that. She is in love. Love makes people do crazy things. The vision shifted abruptly. Now Ayana saw the man with the scar down his cheek. Blackwood. She knew his name, somehow knew it with the certainty that accompanied true visions rather than imagination. He sat in a saloon somewhere drinking whiskey, laughing with two other men. His brothers, she understood without being told. Going to finish what we started at Fort Apache, Blackwood was saying. That Apache girl thinks she escaped, but nobody escapes, Marcus Blackwood. Been tracking her for 18 years waiting for the right moment. And now those Holloway bastards are dead in a mine. She is all alone. Vulnerable for perfect timing. The other men laughed, raised their glasses in a toast to murder. Ayana gasped back to awareness. Rebecca was wiping her forehead with a damp cloth. You were having a vision, Rebecca said quietly. You were speaking in Apache. What did you see, Blackwood? Ayana managed to say between contractions. He is not going to Mexico. He is coming here. For me. He thinks Caleb and Cole are dead. But they are not dead. They are in Santa Fe recovering. I know. But Blackwood does not know that, and if we do not reach Caleb and Cole first, if we do not warn them, terrible things will happen. Moses spoke from his position by the fire. Ma'am, with all respect, you are in no condition to travel anywhere. We need to get you to a doctor in Santa Fe, make certain that baby stays where she belongs for at least a few more weeks. We have to keep moving. Ayana Mom insisted, struggling to sit up despite the pain. Before Blackwood finds us, before he catches Caleb and Cole unprepared. Ayana, be reasonable, Rebecca pleaded. I am being reasonable, Ayana replied. Blackwood killed my mother, killed my entire village. He has been hunting me for 18 years. Do you truly believe he will stop now when he is this close? We must move. Now, while we still can. Rebecca and Moses exchanged meaningful looks, a silent conversation happening between them. She has a point, Moses said finally. If this Blackwood character is as dangerous as she claims, remaining stationary makes us vulnerable targets. At least if we are moving, we have some chance of staying ahead of him or reaching help in Santa Fe. The baby, Rebecca protested weakly. The baby will be safer in Santa Fe with a real doctor than here in an abandoned building with Blackwood hunting us. Ayana said, please, we need to go. They rested for 2 more hours, just long enough for the horses to recover sufficiently and for Ayana's contractions to space out to 30-minute intervals. Then they were back in the stagecoach, racing through darkness towards Santa Fe in safety, and the 2 minutes Ayana needed more than her next breath. She dozed fitfully between contractions, waking each time pain gripped her belly. In her dreams, her mother's face appeared, speaking in Apache. Daughter, you carry the strength of our people. You carry the future. Do not let fear win. Fight for your child. Fight for your loves. Fight for the life you have built from ashes and loss. I am trying, Mother Ayana whispered in her sleep. I am trying so hard. Dawn of the 3rd day found them approaching Santa Fe's outskirts. The contractions had intensified again during the night, coming every 15 minutes now. With increasing strength, Ayana gritted her teeth through each one, refusing to cry out, determined not to show weakness. But this felt different from the previous false labor. These contractions seemed deeper, more purposeful. Like her body had made a decision and was following through regardless of timing or readiness. "How far to the doctor's office?" she asked Moses through clenched teeth. "Maybe 6 more hours if we push hard. But ma'am, those contractions are getting closer together. That baby might not wait 6 hours. Then we will deliver her in the stagecoach if necessary," Rebecca declared. Whatever it takes to get Ayana to her husband's. But even as she spoke, Ayana felt something change. A popping sensation low in her pelvis, followed immediately by a gush of warm liquid between her legs. Her water had broken. "Oh God," Rebecca whispered, seeing the fluid soaking Ayana's dress. "Oh God, the baby is coming. The baby is really coming now." Moses stopped the coach immediately. "Ma'am, we need to get you somewhere flat and sheltered. Can you walk a few steps?" There was a small clearing just off the road, protected by a stand of pine trees. Rebecca and Moses helped Ayana to it, laid out blankets from the stagecoach. Ayana collapsed onto the makeshift bed, panting, trying desperately not to panic. "I am only 7 months pregnant," she kept saying. "The baby is not ready. She is too small. She will not survive being born this early." "Stop," Rebecca said firmly, cutting through the fear. "You do not know that. Plenty of babies are born early and survive just fine. You are going to deliver this child and she is going to be perfect. But you must stay strong. Can you do that?" Ayana nodded, jaw clenched against another contraction. The next hours became a blur of pain and effort unlike anything she had ever experienced. Moses coached her through it, his military training and experience with battlefield births providing guidance that kept them all from complete panic. Rebecca held her hand, wiped her face, whispered encouragement. But despite all her pushing, despite every ounce of effort, the baby would not come. "Something is wrong," Moses said finally, fear entering his normally steady voice. "The baby should have crowned by now. I think she might be stuck." "Stuck," how Ayana gasped. "Shoulder dystocia, possibly. When the baby's shoulder catches on the pelvic bone. I have seen it twice before during the war." He did not finish the sentence. Did not need to. Ayana understood the implication. Both times he had seen this complication, mother, and baby had died. "No," Ayana said through tears. "No. I did not survive Fort Apache to die here. I did not fall in love with two incredible men and build a life against impossible odds just to die in childbirth. Tell me what to do." Moses outlined it quickly. She needed to push harder than she ever had before, needed to change position to adjust the angle, and she needed to do it on the next contraction because the baby's heartbeat was growing fainter, indicating distress. When the next contraction arrived, Ayana bore down with every ounce of strength she possessed. Screamed with the effort, did not care who heard or what they thought. Felt something tear inside her, felt blood, too much blood, but kept pushing anyway. "I see the head," Rebecca shouted. "Keep going. Keep pushing," and then like a dam breaking, the baby slipped free. Tiny, covered in blood and vernix, not moving. For one horrible, eternal moment, absolute silence. Then a cry, weak, barely audible, but unmistakably there, the most beautiful sound Ayana had ever heard in her entire life. Moses held up the baby, a girl just as they had somehow known she would be. So small, too small, but breathing, crying, alive. "She is early," Moses said, wrapping the infant in a clean blanket. "She is very small, but her lungs work, and that is the most critical factor. Everything else can develop with time and care." He placed the tiny bundle on Ayana's chest. The baby was perfect despite her size. Dark hair, just a whisper of it. Skin still red and wrinkled from the birth. Tiny fists waving in protest at the cold world she had entered. "Dawn," Ayana whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Your name is Dawn. Like the new beginning your fathers and I represent." Rebecca was crying, too, relief and joy overwhelming. "She is beautiful, Ayana, absolutely beautiful." But Moses' expression had turned grim again. "Ma'am, you are bleeding more than you should, significantly more. We need to get you to a real doctor immediately. This level of blood loss is dangerous." Ayana looked down and saw blood soaking the blankets beneath her. Too much blood, the kind of bleeding that killed women even when doctors were present. "Can you move me? I must. There is no choice." Moses turned to Rebecca. Hold the baby. Keep her warm. We are going to Santa Fe as fast as these horses can possibly run. They lifted Ayanna back into the stagecoach, trying to be gentle, but moving quickly by necessity. Every jolt sent fresh pain through her torn body, but she bit down on it, focused on staying conscious. Dawn was crying now, a thin, reedy sound that tore at Ayanna's heart. Rebecca, take care of her, Ayanna managed to say. If I do not make it, if I die from this bleeding promise, me, you will take her to Caleb and Cole. Promise me they will know their daughter. You will make it, Rebecca said fiercely. You will survive for her, for them. You will make it. The stagecoach lurched forward, racing towards Santa Fe at speeds that endangered both horses and passengers. Ayanna's vision swam in and out of focus, darkness creeping in at the edges. She had lost too much blood. Her body had endured too much trauma. As consciousness began to slip away, her final thought was a prayer. Please, God, loosen any spirit that listens. Let me live long enough to see them, to place Dawn in their arms, to tell them I love them one more time. Please. Then darkness claimed her completely. Caleb and Cole Holloway were saddling their horses outside the Santa Fe boarding house, preparing for the desperate ride back to Copper Springs when Caleb felt it. A cold spike of dread that drove straight through his chest like an icicle piercing his heart. The kind of premonition that had saved his life more than once during their bounty hunting years. Something is wrong, he said, his hand stilling on the saddle cinch. Cole looked up from tightening his own saddle, favoring his injured shoulder. What do you mean with Ayanna? Something has happened. I can feel it in my bones. Caleb, we are 2 days hard riding from Copper Springs. There is no possible way you could sense anything about her condition from this distance. I do not care about logic or possibility. Caleb's voice rose slightly, urgency making it sharp. Something is wrong. We need to move now. Before Cole could respond, the sound of hoofbeats approached fast and desperate. A stagecoach came careening down the street, the driver whipping the exhausted horses into a final burst of speed they clearly did not possess. The coach skidded to a halt directly in front of Dr. Patterson's office. The driver, an older black man Caleb did not recognize, jumped down from his seat, shouting, Doc Patterson, need help immediately. Pregnant woman, early delivery, bleeding badly. She is dying. Caleb's heart stopped completely. He and Cole were running before conscious thought caught up to physical action. Ayanna Caleb reached the stagecoach, first yanked the door open with such force it nearly tore from the hinges. There she lay on the bench seat, dress soaked dark with blood, so pale she looked like a ghost already. Her eyes were closed, chest barely moving with shallow breaths. And in the arms of a woman Caleb vaguely recognized as Rebecca from Copper Springs, wrapped in blood-stained blankets, was a baby, tiny, making weak mewling sounds. Their daughter. What happened? Uncle demanded, his voice cracking. Rebecca spoke rapidly, words tumbling over each other. Contractions started 2 days ago. False labor at first, but then her water broke. She delivered about 3 hours ago. We tried to stop the bleeding, but nothing worked. We got here as fast as we could, but she has lost so much blood. Dr. Patterson appeared, took one look at Ayanna, and immediately began barking orders. Get her inside now, and bring the infant. Caleb and Cole lifted Ayanna as gently as humanly possible despite the urgency. She felt too light, too fragile, like she might shatter if they gripped too hard. Her head lolled against Caleb's shoulder. Do not you dare die, Caleb whispered fiercely against her ear. You hear me, Ayanna? Do not you dare leave us now. Her eyelids fluttered briefly. For just one moment, her eyes opened, found his face. Her lips moved, forming his name, though no sound emerged. Then her eyes closed again, and she went completely limp in their arms. They got her inside onto Patterson's examination table. The doctor pushed both brothers back, started working with hands that moved too fast to follow clearly. She has lost massive amounts of blood, hemorrhaging from cervical, tearing during delivery. I need to stop the bleeding immediately or she will die within the hour. Cole stood frozen in the doorway, staring at the baby Rebecca still held. That is our daughter, he said, wonder and terror mixing in his voice until they became indistinguishable. She is so impossibly small, early, Rebecca confirmed, at least 6 weeks premature. But she is breathing on her own, crying, fighting to survive. She is a warrior like her mother. Caleb moved closer, looked down at the tiny face visible within the blanket wrapping. She had dark hair, what little there was of it, and when her eyes opened for just a second, they were pale green. Unmistakably, Holloway eyes. Dawn, Caleb said, remembering the name Ayanna had chosen months ago. She wanted to name her Dawn. Behind them, Patterson was still working, muttering medical terminology under his breath. Words like uterine atony and manual compression and the bleeding is not stopping that made Caleb's stomach clench with fear. Doc Cole's voice emerged small, vulnerable, in ways Caleb had not heard since they were children. Is she going to survive? I do not know. Patterson did not look up from his work. If I can stop this hemorrhaging, if the blood loss has not already been too severe, then perhaps. But she has lost enormous amounts already. Even if I stop it now, she might not recover. So we pray, Caleb said. Both of you. We pray harder than we have ever prayed in our entire lives. They did. Caleb and Cole stood together, hands clasped, heads bowed, praying to any God who might listen. To the Christian God their mother had worshipped. To Usan and the Apache spirits Ayanna revered. To anything that might have the power to keep her alive. Please, Caleb prayed silently. Please let her live. We will give up everything. The bounty money, the trading post, our own lives if necessary. Just let her survive. Let her see our daughter grow up. Let our family stay whole. Time stopped having any meaning. Could have been minutes or hours. Patterson worked while Ayanna lay motionless as death. Dawn cried in Rebecca's arms, that thin sound that spoke of need and vulnerability. Finally, after what felt like eternity compressed into moments, Patterson stepped back. Blood covered his hands and apron, but his expression had shifted from desperate concentration to cautious, fragile relief. The bleeding has stopped. I tore additional tissue, getting it under control. The recovery will be difficult and painful, but it has stopped. She is alive. The world started moving again. Oxygen returned to Caleb's lungs. Will she stay alive? Cole asked the question they both needed answered. The next 24 to 48 hours will determine everything. If infection sets in, if internal bleeding restarts, if her body has been too weakened by blood loss to recover, then no. But she is young and strong, and she has survived traumas that would have killed most people. She has a chance, not a guarantee, but a chance, not certainty, but infinitely more than they had possessed 5 minutes ago. Patterson cleaned his hands, looked at the baby still in Rebecca's arms. Let me examine the infant now. Ensure she is healthy despite being born significantly premature. Rebecca handed Dawn over with visible reluctance. The doctor was gentle, his movements practiced and efficient as he unwrapped the blankets and checked the tiny body thoroughly. 5 pounds, or perhaps slightly less. Lungs sound adequate. Heart rate is strong. She is very small and will require extensive care, but I have seen smaller premature infants survive and thrive. He rewrapped her, carefully looked at Caleb. Congratulations. You have a daughter. The weight of Dawn in Caleb's arms was almost nothing. She weighed less than his rifle. But the responsibility, the sheer enormity of what she represented, nearly drove him to his knees. This tiny person, this perfect, impossible person, created from love that refused to follow convention. Made from Ayanna and Cole and himself in ways that transcended biology. Hello there, Dawn, Caleb whispered. I am your father. One of them, anyway. Your other father is right here. He tilted her so Cole could see her face. And your mother, your incredibly brave mother, is going to be fine. She has to be. Because you need her. We all need her desperately. Dawn's eyes opened, unfocused but searching, looking for something instinctively. Looking for her mother. Soon, Caleb promised her. Soon you will meet her properly, when she wakes up. If she wakes up, some dark part of his mind whispered. But Caleb pushed that thought away violently. She would wake. She had to wake. Ayanna woke 6 hours later. Caleb was sitting beside her bed, holding Dawn carefully, when her eyes fluttered open and focused on his face. Caleb. Her voice was barely a whisper, raw and exhausted. I am here. Relief flooded through him so intensely it felt like physical pain. We are both here. He stood carefully, brought Dawn closer so Ayanna could see. And so is she. Your daughter. Our daughter. Dawn. Tears leaked from the corners of Ayanna's eyes, ran down into her hair. Is she all right? She was so early, so small. I was terrified she would not survive. She is perfect. Small but perfect. Doc Patterson says she has an excellent chance if we take proper care of her. Can I hold her? Caleb placed Dawn carefully on Ayana's chest, watched as their daughter instinctively rooted toward her mother, seeking food and comfort. The sight made something in his chest crack open, emotions he did not have names for, flooding through. Cole appeared in the doorway looking haggard. He had been pacing in the hallway for hours, too anxious to sit still. "You are awake," he said, relief flooding his features. "Thank God in every spirit. I thought we might lose you." "I am not that easy to kill," Ayana replied, though her voice shook. "I am sorry. I know I should not have traveled in my condition, but I had to warn you. Blackwood is coming. He thinks you are both dead. He plans to finish what he started at Fort Apache." "We know," Caleb said. "Agent Blackwell told us. That is why we were preparing to ride back when your stagecoach arrived." "We need a plan," Cole said, settling into a chair on the other side of the bed. "Blackwood will not stop until one of us is dead. We need to end this permanently." Caleb had been thinking about this during the hours of waiting and fear. An idea had been forming cold and clear. We returned to Copper Springs, all three of us together once Ayana and Dawn can travel safely. We spread word that Ayana is there recovering from childbirth. Vulnerable. Perfect target. "You want to use her as bait," Cole said flatly. "I want to end this on our terms. Our ground. Our timing. Blackwood wants Ayana fine. Let him come for her. But when he does, we will be ready and waiting." Ayana was nodding despite her obvious exhaustion. "The trading post. We know every inch of it. We can fortify positions, set up ambush points. Sheriff Thompson will help coordinate." "Absolutely not," Cole protested. "You just gave birth. You nearly died from blood loss. You are not going anywhere, and you are certainly not serving as bait for a killer." "She is right, though," Caleb said slowly. "Blackwood will not believe the trap unless she is genuinely there. If we claim she is in Copper Springs, but she remains here, he will smell deception immediately. Then we make him think she is there without actually putting her in danger." Cole countered, that look appearing in his eyes that meant he had an idea forming. "Rebecca. She is approximately the same size as Ayana, same general build. In darkness from a distance, Blackwood would not be able to distinguish between them." Rebecca, who had been listening from the hallway, stepped into the room. "I will do it. If it means keeping Ayana and Dawn safe, I will do whatever you need." "It is too dangerous," Ayana protested weakly. "If Blackwood realizes you are not me, if he gets close enough to see clearly, then your husbands will shoot him dead before he can harm anyone," Rebecca interrupted. "That is the plan, correct?" Caleb and Cole exchanged looks. That silent communication that came from sharing a womb and a lifetime. It could work. Blackwood was obsessed with finishing what he started at Fort Apache. If he thought Ayana was in the trading post vulnerable with a newborn, he would come. And when he did, they would end him permanently. "What about Dawn?" Ayana asked, looking down at the tiny bundle nursing at her breast. "The baby cannot be anywhere near this confrontation." "She stays here with you," Caleb said firmly. "Patterson's house has a back room you can use. You will be safe. We will post guards. The fight happens at the trading post, far from where you and Dawn are sheltering. And if Blackwood does not take the bait, if he suspects a trap, then we hunt him the old-fashioned way," Cole replied. "Track him across the territory if necessary. But one way or another, he dies. For what he did at Fort Apache. For threatening you. For endangering our daughter. He does not get to walk away from this." Ayana looked between both her husbands, then down at Dawn, feeding contentedly despite all the trauma and chaos surrounding her birth. When she looked up again, her eyes had hardened with resolve. "Kill him," she said quietly. "Make him suffer first if you are able. But kill him. For my mother, for my people, for us and for our daughter, who should never have to fear the man who massacred her mother's family. We will," Cole promised. "I swear it on my life and on every ancestor who came before me." Dr. Patterson insisted Ayana remain in Santa Fe for a full week before attempting any travel. "She needs time to heal from the tearing and blood loss," he explained. "The journey to Copper Springs is rough even under ideal circumstances. Her body requires rest and recovery first." Those 7 days felt simultaneously too long and not nearly long enough. Too long because Caleb needed to return to Copper Springs and set the trap for Blackwood before the outlaw grew suspicious or changed his plans. Not long enough because Ayana was so weak, so pale, clearly not ready for travel, despite what the calendar said. But they learned to be parents during that week. Learned that a premature infant required feeding every 2 hours around the clock. Learned the difference between hungry crying and tired crying and the I am uncomfortable and need changing crying. Learned to function on perhaps 2 hours of sleep in scattered 15-minute increments. Caleb took the dawn shift naturally, being the earliest riser. He would wake to Dawn's crying, lift her carefully from the cradle beside Ayana's bed, walk her while Ayana prepared to nurse. Those quiet morning hours watching the sun rise over the mountains while holding his daughter became sacred time. You have two fathers, he would whisper to her while she fed. Two fathers who love you more than life itself, and a mother who is the bravest person who ever lived. You are going to grow up strong and fierce and kind like her. You are going to know you are loved every single day of your existence. Cole handled evening duties, taking Dawn after her final feeding so Ayana could sleep for a few uninterrupted hours. He would sit in the rocking chair Patterson had provided, holding their daughter against his chest, humming songs he remembered from childhood. Caleb found them like that one evening, both asleep in the chair, Cole's large scarred hand cradling Dawn's tiny head with infinite gentleness. The sight made his throat close up with emotions he could not adequately name. This man who had killed more than 20 outlaws without hesitation, who had faced death repeatedly without flinching, reduced to complete tenderness by 6 pounds of baby. We did this, Caleb thought, watching them sleep. We created this family against every rule and expectation, and we will protect it against anything that threatens it. On the 7th day, Dr. Patterson declared Ayana fit to travel with extensive precautions. She still requires significant rest. The tearing has healed adequately, but remains fragile. Any strenuous activity could cause it to reopen, and the baby needs careful monitoring. Premature infants are vulnerable to respiratory problems and feeding difficulties. We will take every care, Caleb promised. She and Dawn will remain in Santa Fe, under guard while we handle Blackwood. They will not be at risk. The journey back to Copper Springs took 4 days instead of the usual 3. They traveled slowly with frequent stops for Dawn's needs and Ayana's comfort. She was still weak, still recovering, needed help getting in and out of the stagecoach. But she was alive. Dawn was alive, and that mattered more than speed. During those quiet hours on the road, sitting beside Ayana while Cole rode ahead, as Scout Caleb spoke about the future they would build after Blackwood was dead. We will buy that ranch land outside town, he said. 200 acres with good grazing and a creek running through it. Cole can raise horses like he has always dreamed. You can expand the trading post, or run it, or sell it. Whatever you prefer. And Dawn will grow up with space to run and play, learning both her Apache heritage and her cowboy blood. That sounds perfect, Ayana replied, her hand finding his. But first we must survive the next few days. We will. Caleb squeezed her hand gently. Blackwood's obsession makes him predictable. He will come for you, and he will die trying. They reached Copper Springs on the 4th evening. Word spread fast. The Holloway twins had returned. Ayana had given birth. The baby had survived despite being born dangerously early. People gathered outside the trading post, not with judgment, but with gifts and congratulations. Mrs. Henderson brought quilts she had sewn, tiny ones, sized for a premature infant. For little Dawn. Heard she came early. These should help keep her warm. Mr. Chen from the general store brought food enough to stock the trading post for weeks. No charge. You saved this town from Blackwood's gang. Consider it payment for services rendered. Even Reverend Matthews appeared carrying a leather-bound Bible. Whatever my personal opinions about your domestic arrangement, he said carefully, that child is innocent and deserves God's blessing, same as any infant. And you 3 showed more courage and righteousness than most supposedly proper families I have known. Coming from Matthews, that represented revolutionary acceptance. Sheriff Thompson gathered everyone in the street and made a brief speech. Folks, the Holloway's family structure may not be traditional, but they risked everything, including their unborn child, to hunt down one of the most dangerous outlaws in the territory. They are family as far as I am concerned. Anyone who objects can discuss it with me personally. Silence followed his words. Then Mrs. Henderson spoke up, her voice carrying clearly. 3 parents loving one child, seems like that baby has more love than most children receive from traditional families. I call that lucky, not scandalous. Applause followed, tentative at first, then genuine and sustained. They had been accepted, finally and fully accepted, despite everything that made them different. That night alone in their quarters above the trading post, the three of them lay in the bed Caleb had built months ago. Dawn slept in her cradle beside them, fed and warm and safe. I was so frightened, Ayanna whispered into the darkness. When I was giving birth in that field, bleeding, and convinced I would never see either of you again. Thinking Dawn would grow up without knowing her fathers. But you did not die, Cole said gently. You fought like the warrior you are. You survived because you are too stubborn and too strong to let death claim you easily. We all fought, Caleb added. We all survived, together. That is what we do, what we will always do. Ayanna turned to look at both of them, eyes shining in the lamplight. I love you both, more than I believed it was possible to love. You are my family, my partners, my everything. We love you too, both brothers said simultaneously, which made her smile despite the lingering exhaustion and pain. And this little one, she continued stroking Dawn's downy head through the cradle slats. She will grow up knowing she is loved by three parents who chose each other against every social convention, who fought for each other, who built something beautiful from courage and determination. She will have questions as she grows older, Cole said, about why she has two fathers instead of one, about her mixed heritage, about our unconventional family. Then we will answer those questions honestly, Caleb replied. We will teach her that love transcends boundaries, that family is defined by choice and commitment, not by biology or social approval, that she was created from something rare and precious. They drifted towards sleep exhaustion, claiming them. But before unconsciousness arrived completely, Caleb made a silent vow. Blackwood dies tomorrow night, for Ayanna's mother, for every person he has murdered, for the daughter sleeping peacefully in her cradle. The killing ends. The healing begins. Our family gets to live in peace, finally. The trap was set for the following night. Sheriff Thompson positioned deputies on rooftops around the trading post. Pinkerton agents Blackwell had brought occupied the general store and livery stable, hidden but ready. Everyone had clear instructions. When Blackwood made his move, they would close around him like a fist, eliminate him and anyone who rode with him. Rebecca wore one of Ayanna's dresses, sat in the trading post behind the bar in Ayanna's customary position. In dim lamplight from a distance, the resemblance was convincing enough. Caleb and Cole took positions inside hidden, but with clear sight lines to all entrances. Their rifles were loaded and ready. Their revolvers had fresh ammunition. Every weapon they owned had been cleaned and prepared. Ayanna and Dawn remained safely in Dr. Patterson's house on the far side of town, guards posted outside. They were nowhere near the coming violence. The waiting was the hardest part. Hours stretched like years. Midnight came and went, 1 in the morning, 2. At 3:17 a.m. the first window shattered, not from gunfire, from thrown rocks. 3 large stones came crashing through the trading post's front windows, showering glass across the floor. A voice echoed down the empty street, Marcus Blackwood's voice mocking and cruel. Come out, little Apache girl. I know you are in there. You and that half-breed baby you birthed. Time to finish what we started at Fort Apache. Rebecca flinched at the words but held her position. Brave woman, more rocks, more broken glass. Then Blackwood's voice again. I am going to burn this place down around you, just like we burned your village. You will die screaming like your mother did. Rage flooded hot through Caleb's veins. He wanted to shoot immediately to kill, to make Blackwood hurt, but he forced himself to wait. Let the outlaw get closer. Let him commit fully, or maybe I will just shoot you through the window. Blackwood continued. Easier that way, less screaming to endure. A gunshot. The bullet punched through what remained of the front window, buried itself in the wall behind the bar. Rebecca ducked instinctively. Then more gunfire, multiple shooters. Blackwood had not come alone. He had brought whatever remained of his gang, maybe 8 or 10 guns from the sound of it. Now Caleb said quietly. He and Cole opened fire simultaneously, their bullets shattering the remaining windows and sending Blackwood's men diving for cover. Outside, Sheriff Thompson's deputies and the Pinkerton agents opened up from their positions. The street erupted into chaos. Muzzle flashes lit the darkness like lightning. The roar of gunfire was deafening, continuous. Smoke filled the air, thick and choking. Caleb saw one of Blackwood's men go down, clutching his chest. Then another. The ambush was working perfectly. But Blackwood himself remained frustratingly invisible. Where was he? Cole shouted a warning. Back door. The sound of splintering wood came from the rear of the trading post. Blackwood had circled around while his men provided distraction from the front. Classic tactic. Caleb ran toward the back Winchester, up finger on the trigger. He kicked through the storage room door just as Blackwood climbed through the broken rear entrance. They saw each other at the same instant. Both fired. Caleb's bullet caught Blackwood in the left side, spun him around. Blackwood's bullet hit Caleb's left thigh, sent white-hot pain lancing up his leg. Caleb went down hard, rifle clattering from his hands. Blackwood straightened despite his wound bleeding, but very much alive. The scar on his cheek was livid in the lamplight, a grotesque slash that marked him as the monster he was. He raised his gun, aimed at Caleb's head. Should have stayed dead in that mine holloway. Before he could pull the trigger, Cole appeared behind him, brought his rifle stock down on Blackwood's skull with brutal, decisive force. Blackwood dropped like a stone gun falling from his hand. "You all right?" Cole helped Caleb to his feet, glanced at the bleeding thigh wound. "I will live. Just a graze. Hurts like hell, but the bullet went through clean." Outside, the gunfire was dying down. Sheriff Thompson's voice rang out clearly. "Drop your weapons. You are surrounded." The sounds of surrender followed. Guns hitting dirt, hands being raised. Caleb and Cole dragged Blackwood into the main room, threw him down in front of the bar where Rebecca still crouched. He was conscious, but dazed, blood streaming from the gash in his scalp where Cole had struck him. "It is over," Caleb told him, voice hard. "Your men are dead or captured. You have lost." Blackwood laughed, a wet gurgling sound. "You think this is over? There are always more like me. Always more who will finish what I started." "Maybe," Caleb replied, "but you will not be one of them. You are going to hang for what you did at Fort Apache, for the federal soldiers you murdered, for every life you destroyed. And before you hang, you are going to sit in a cell and think about all the families you tore apart, including Ayanna's." The Apache squaw Blackwood spat blood. She was supposed to die with the rest of her savage family. "I should have checked the bodies more carefully 18 years ago." Cole's boot connected with Blackwood's ribs hard enough to crack bone. The outlaw gasped, curled in on himself. "Watch your mouth," Cole said with deadly quiet. "That woman is our wife, the mother of our child, and she is worth 10,000 of you." Sheriff Thompson came in, surveyed the scene, smiled grimly. "Well, Marcus Blackwood himself, I have a nice cell waiting for you, and Judge Morrison has been eager to try you for those soldier murders. He will hang one of the Pinkerton agents confirmed. Federal crime, federal witnesses, open and shut case." They dragged Blackwood out, still spitting curses and threats. Caleb watched him go, felt something settle in his chest. Not quite peace, but close. It was over. Really genuinely over. The cleanup took hours. Bodies removed, blood scrubbed from floors, broken windows boarded up temporarily. By the time the sun rose pink and gold over the mountains, the trading post looked like it had survived a war, which Caleb supposed it had. They rode to Patterson's house as dawn broke, fully needing to see Ayanna and Dawn, needing to confirm they were safe. Ayanna met them at the door, holding Dawn carefully. Her eyes scanned both brothers, quickly cataloging injuries. "You are hurt," she said, seeing Caleb's bandaged thigh. "It is minor. The bullet went through cleanly. I will heal." And Blackwood. "In Sheriff Thompson's jail," Cole reported, "awaiting trial and hanging. He is finished. Can never hurt anyone again." Ayanna closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face. "Thank God. Thank Usen. Thank whoever was listening." Caleb pulled her into his arms carefully, mindful of her still healing body and the baby between them. "It is over," he whispered against her hair. "We can finally live in peace. Build the life we fought for." They stood like that for a long time, the four of them together. Safe, whole, a family that had survived everything the frontier could throw at them. The first weeks of parenthood proved harder than tracking outlaws across hostile territory. Dawn demanded constant attention, woke every 2 hours to feed, cried with impressive volume when displeased. None of Caleb's skills with weapons or tracking meant anything when it came to soothing a screaming infant at 3 in the morning. But they learned, developed rhythms and routines, discovered that working as 3 parents rather than 2 actually made things easier in many ways. Caleb took morning shift, waking early anyway. He would change Dawn, walk her, keep her entertained while Ayanna rested and recovered from the birth trauma. Cole handled evening routines. Bath time became his domain, an elaborate ritual involving songs and gentle splashing that made Dawn produce sounds that might have been baby laughter. And nights they took turns trading off every other feeding so Ayanna could sleep for more than 2 hours consecutively. One particularly rough night around 3 a.m. Dawn was crying inconsolably. Ayanna was exhausted to the point of tears herself. Cole's shoulder was aching from the old injury. Caleb took Dawn, paced the room while humming trail songs his mother had sung when he and Cole were infants. After perhaps an hour, she finally quieted her tiny fist wrapping around his finger, her pale green eyes looking up at him with what might have been trust. "Hey there, little Dawn," he whispered. "Your fathers are trying our absolute best. We have tracked dangerous men across 3 territories, but you are tougher than all of them combined. You are going to keep us on our toes for the next 20 years at least." She made a small sound, almost a coo. Something in Caleb's chest shifted and settled. This was what they had fought for. This tiny person who needed them completely, who trusted them to keep her safe and warm and loved. He could do this. They could do this together. When Dawn was 3 months old, strong enough to travel safely, Ayanna announced she wanted to visit Fort Apache. "Are you certain?" Caleb asked carefully. "That location holds painful memories." "Exactly why I need to face them," Ayanna replied. "And I want Dawn to know where she comes from. All of where she comes from. The Apache blood that runs in her veins is part of who she is. I will not hide that from her or pretend it does not matter." Cole and Caleb exchanged glances, that silent communication that required no words. If this was important to Ayanna, it was important to them. "Then we go," Cole said simply. The journey took 5 days, traveling slowly with many stops for Dawn's needs. She was a surprisingly good traveler, slept most of the time in the cradle board Ayanna had made, woke only to eat or be changed. Fort Apache had transformed since the massacre. No longer a military installation, it now served as an Apache settlement under Bureau of Indian Affairs supervision. Small houses clustered around a central square. People went about daily tasks, weaving baskets and tending horses, and living lives that had found some measure of peace after decades of war. They stopped when they saw Ayanna, stared at the sight of an Apache woman traveling with 2 white cowboys and a baby in a cradle board. Then an elderly woman stepped forward. Her face showed the deep lines of age hair, white as snow, but her eyes remained sharp and knowing. She stared at Ayanna for a long, silent moment. "Little star." Her voice cracked with emotion and disbelief. "Na'alnish, is that truly you?" Ayanna gasped, nearly dropped the cradle board in shock. Grandmother Amma. She had believed her grandmother died in the massacre. But here she stood alive, waiting. They embraced, both crying. Years of separation and grief and believing the other dead dissolved in tears, and Apache words Caleb could not understand but felt in his chest anyway. Finally, Amma pulled back, looked at Dawn sleeping peacefully in the cradle board. "And who is this little one?" "Your great-granddaughter," Ayanna managed through tears. "Dawn. And these are her fathers, my husbands, Caleb and Cole Holloway." Amma studied both brothers with eyes that seemed to see straight through flesh to soul. Caleb felt like every secret he had ever kept was being read and cataloged. After a long moment, she nodded. "2 fathers for 1 child. This is balance. The Apache way values strength above convention, and she will have double strength. Double protection, double love. Welcome to my home." They stayed for a week. Amma taught Ayanna things she had forgotten or never learned properly. Apache songs and prayers. Stories of their people, the old ways that were slowly disappearing under reservation rules and white governance. She made a traditional cradle board for Dawn, decorated with symbols of protection and strength, and she blessed Dawn in an Apache ceremony, painting symbols on her tiny forehead with clay mixed with sacred herbs, chanting prayers to Usin and the mountain spirits. "This child walks in 2 worlds," Amma said, holding Dawn up to the sky. "White and Apache, 2 fathers, 1 mother, different but whole. The spirits will protect her because she is a bridge, a new beginning that carries the best of both peoples." Caleb and Cole participated as respectfully as they